Hey everybody, let's see if we're on here. Looks like we are. Hey everyone. Today is going to be a good day. We are going live with Lee. If anyone follows her, she is amazing. Oh, let's get our microphones over here too. My microphone's so... Oh my gosh, we got an Ireland on here. How are you doing? That's awesome. How are you guys? Can you hear us pretty well with our microphones? Just doing a sound check really quick because I feel like we're always doing a sound check. Corey's over here. Okay, let's see. Woohoo, we're getting some people jumping on.
Hello, guys.
I want to see.
Put on my headphones.
Yeah, check and see. All good here. Sweet. Thanks for joining us from Ireland. That's amazing.
Hello, guys. Corey's here too.
Awesome. Okay, we're just trying to... So this is our first attempt at co-hosting a live with Lee. So Lee did a live with Mary Brown the other day, which was amazing. And let's see. So we are going to give this a try. We're going to try to link to Lee right now and see what happens. Let's see if we can find her. How do we find her? Oh, there she is, right there. Okay, so we're going to accept that.
Did you accept?
Yeah.
You accept.
Yay. Okay, now we got to figure out how to turn our things back on. There we are. Hi. Oh, yeah, I'm going to have to be able to hear this. Oh, gosh. How are we going to do that?
You might have to do it.
Can you hear us? Okay, how do we do this?
Yeah, how do we do that?
We have never done this before, so...
How is Corey going to hear me? So we can talk about him.
Yeah, we can talk about Corey while he's not listening to us. How do we do this? How could we... We got to figure this out.
Do it like on your phone, but I think you should just do it.
Yeah, but she's got some questions for you because you're hilarious.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now we got to scoot back farther so that we can even both get in the camera. We've never done...
Do you need the mic?
Yeah, we might need those microphones. Oh, geez, sorry, that was loud.
Do you need it? Because if you unplug the mic, then are you on your phone or are you on your computer?
No, we're on our computer.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're just trying to figure all this out, and you are our first... Oh, now I can't hear. There, now can you hear us?
I'm the first.
She can hear us just great.
Oh,
She
nice.
should be able to hear us just fine.
So are you on your phone or your computer?
I'm on my phone.
Phone. Okay. Gotcha.
I'm one of those weird people who's like anti-computer.
Oh, see, we're just trying to figure it out because when we're both in the camera, it's easier to do it on the computer.
Oh, yes.
So that's why we were trying to figure it out this way, but we can do our phone too if we have to. Let's see.
Well, he could, if you're not, so here's the thought. If you are not using the phone, he can turn his phone on and listen to the live via headphones.
Why don't you do that, babe? Yeah, we'll do that.
He's going to have a little bit of a lag, but
yeah,
that's fine. Not enough to cause a death.
Get over here. You're coming back over. Yeah, we're just, we've been trying to figure all this stuff out. We have like this whole setup now. It's like ridiculous, all the stuff we have going on in the background. But now we got to figure out like how to dual. I was already doing a podcast, so I knew how to do a singly. The whole thing has been trying to figure out how to do us dually. So
I know. So I have a hard time because the setup I had a podcast for a short time. So I did have the hear and listen, but I don't like to have the headphones on when I'm doing TikTok video stuff. So I have my microphone and if I plug it in and record, then I have to unplug it and then I have to put the clip in. And then I have to plug the mic in and I have to tell the mic to mic back in because it has to send through the sound. And then I can talk and then I unplug and then I plug it and then I unplug. And I'm like, I hate this.
Yeah.
There's got to be a toggle solution somewhere.
There has got to be. I know there is. I just don't know how to do it. So let's see if Corey's figuring it out right now. But we're so excited. I absolutely love you, and I love your videos. I love your take on things, and I just mostly love your total energy. You're so calm and soothing, and I think that's one of the reasons why I've loved watching your things, because I feel like in this arena there's a lot of hype that happens and people get like super excited about stuff, and so it's just nice to listen to your chill voice.
Thank you. You know, one of the things where you say hype, when it comes to, you know, reality TV or even talking about polygamy, religion, belief systems, all of that, and people come in like breaking news, and it's like, is this really a breaking news situation?
No, not at all. Not at all. And can you hear that now, babe? Okay.
Hey,
I just flipping one of my headphones around so he can hear it. And
look at that.
We'll snuggle. Where are you sitting?
I know. Act like you love each other.
I know. We'll get close. Yeah, and that is one of the reasons I decided to start doing podcasts, is because I got tired of the hype. It felt so overinflated all the time. And so I just was like, you know what? I'm going to do my own thing, because I am tired of the hype that I'm seeing coming from some different creators. So so it's been fun. I'm new to TikTok, fairly new to TikTok. I only just started a TikTok. My kids begged me to start one, and so I'm fairly new to it.
You are doing great on here. You are, and sharing your story and everything you've been through. That's kind of a big deal. That's a huge deal.
Yeah, we're actually in the process right now of filming some videos of our own personal stories. And I won't even lie, vulnerability hangovers are a real thing. That we'll go live for a couple hours one night, and then like the next day I'm like, I could never talk about polygamy again. I'd be totally fine. But then we get on it and I just love it. And so then we still go. So.
And then you have to. Yeah, and that's actually one of the reasons why I got into talking about reality TV, is because it was an assignment from my therapist.
Oh, nice.
You make TikToks, you talk about this stuff, you watch reality TV. Why don't you use that information and create videos out of it? So then you get your emotional energy out. Because there's a lot of things, like you talk about too, with the emotional abuse and financial abuse and things like that happen, that I've been through in my past as well.
Yeah.
And so I can relate to it. And that's where you bring your energy in too. It's like you've lived through it. Both of you have lived through it, and you have different sides to tell as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it is, especially where I grew up in more of like, if you've ever watched Big Love, they talk about like the suburban polygamist, and that's kind of what I grew up at. And then the compound polygamist, which is where Corey grew up.
Right.
And same with my ex-husband. He actually grew up down the street from Corey. Okay. And so he was part of the AUB as well. And he grew up in Montana on the compound as well. So
in Montana.
Yeah.
All right.
So Corey grew up down the street from Robin. And her older brother was Corey's best friend growing up.
Now, where exactly was this in Montana?
Pinesdale, Montana. Yeah. It's just about 50 miles south of Missoula is the biggest city up there.
Yeah.
So it's the Bitterroot Valley. If you look and you see the face of Montana, there's a face on one side of it. It's actually the nose. That's the Bitterroot Valley.
Okay. So that's way over Idaho, which makes sense because there's Idaho areas as well that have farms.
We were actually on the Idaho-Montana border right there. So up at the top of the mountain, right behind Pinesdale, when you drop down the other side, it's Idaho over there.
Okay. So I wonder how far. So I would spend my summers in Montana, in Livingston, Montana. And my dad, he grew up in Ashton, Idaho.
Okay.
And then my parents met over Yellowstone area. So yeah, all of that, I'm very familiar with that area and growing up there. My dad actually grew up LDS.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. So that was another thing that got me into Big Love when it came out. I was like, what's the difference? What's ultimately the difference?
Right. And I don't know if you heard that Big Love was loosely based on my dad.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah. Yeah. So he did an interview with a reporter named Brady Udell. And I remember when all this happened, I was young enough that I didn't realize what we were doing. I didn't realize that's what we were doing. And so my dad did this interview back in 98, I believe, maybe 97. And so then he wrote an article called The Lonely Polygamist, and that in Esquire magazine. I think it was Esquire magazine. And then that resulted in the book
well, then they wrote a book called The Big Love.
Yeah.
So, but he did there's different characters. We watched it because we're like, who are they basing
we
that
sat and
over?
guessed which polygamist each storyline was built around.
Yeah.
They didn't have enough kids in that family.
I know, they didn't. No.
And
It was the beginning of the family.
Yeah. So, and my mom's not the first wife. She's technically the second wife, but she had cancer. And in Big Love, the first wife has cancer.
Yeah.
And then the next wife is the compound wife, which my dad's next wife was the compound wife. And then the next one was the young pretty wife, which... What?
She was a babysitter.
Yeah, the babysitter, young pretty wife, which was not the order that my dad's wives came in. But there was a man who abandoned like 12 wives and 96 kids, something like that. Yeah, he had so many wives and so many kids, and he abandoned them all. And so their wives were sent out to different families, and my dad got one of those wives, and then his next wife was the young, hot wife.
And the young, the pretty and shy wife, the pretty and shy.
Right. Yeah. So now she's been. The compound wife was my dad's wife, his favorite wife for years, and then it switched to the young, pretty wife, and so yeah. So that's why Big Love is so fascinating to us, because we can literally pick like who each, storyline was based around, which families or particular individuals.
Yeah. So. Wow. So did your family get involved in casinos at all?
In the what? Sorry.
Casinos.
No, not at all. That's just for the Mormon Church and for like independents.
That's because in Big Love he had the where he started with cars, and then he had the supermarket, and then he had the casinos, and then he ended up doing money laundering and just all the. But they have to make it interesting, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. No, but we do have they do have the Home Plus.
The lumber store.
The lumber store, which we know who owns that lumber store in real life. They did have the car place, which that would be Christine's dad. He's the one who owned the car place.
Okay.
And at least my whole life, he owned the car place here in Salt Lake until he moved to Idaho. So, yeah. So there's a whole bunch of different storylines. So we thought about doing a rewatch on that and then giving our commentary on it. But that one does provoke a little bit more PTSD in me than not.
Oh, that's true.
So we'll see if we end up, because we've watched the first episode again, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna lose my damn mind watching this. So, but yeah, my dad, when it first came out, he was in a room with a whole bunch of reporters, with all of his wives, and they were watching it. And like I said, at the time, I didn't realize because it was loosely based on him. I had no idea. Yeah. And so he had all these reporters in there, and that first sex scene came on, and my dad lost his mind, and it instantly turned off the TV and then just gave like a regular interview. So,
oh my God.
Yeah.
I don't even remember who the first sex scene was involved.
I think it was Marjorie or something. It was, it was like one of those crazy.
So it wasn't even the harsh ones that they get into later in the compound. Like
no.
Which they say harsh one, but to me it's a normal one, because it was the guy who was trying to be the prophet. Well, he ended up being it for a little bit, but he ended up being a bisexual or gay or whatever. Yeah, and there were some scenes in that were not kind type of relations. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it was crazy. So yeah, we watched that, and then my dad would pretend that he wasn't interested, but then he'd come to our house and he'd watch it at our house. because it came on Sunday nights, and it was typically after church was over. So he'd come over and he'd call me and he'd be like, "Hey Mel, can I come over and have dinner?" And then he would sit and watch an episode or two with us. So
That's funny.
Yeah.
So I got my dad. I did have a question here. Big Love is a TV series that was on Showtime, and it was really good. I felt like it taught us the difference between those who are living in polygamy in regular world versus those who are living polygamy on the compound. Now, not to say that it makes it completely healthy, because as we see the ending of the Brown family, how the unhealthy dynamics come out.
right.
So that's not to say that one or the other was healthy or unhealthy, but the compound certainly has some issues.
Yeah. Oh, I thought that I was like in a crazy world growing up, and then like my ex-husband never talked about stuff like that. We just didn't talk very much at all. He was a lot older than I was, and we just didn't have a very good relationship at all. And so he didn't tell me a lot of his childhood stories. And so then I get together with Corey, and Corey starts, I'm like, what? Like my mouth drops every time I'm talking. Like, is that even possible? Like, how did your parents let that happen? And so, yeah, it was interesting, because that's one of the reasons I started to speak out too. Our kids were like, "You guys have to tell some of your stories, because some of them are so horrific that we're trying to work into those ones, because we don't want to traumatize people right off the bat." But but some of them, you know, Corey's definitely got some stories that are.
Yeah, we lived a completely different life. So we were considered the workhorses within the United Order. So at a young age, we were out farming. We worked at the dairy. We worked at all of these places, and stuff that out in the real world, people would have probably called
DCFS
on. Yeah, that didn't happen up there on the compound. They got away with a lot of stuff. They had their own police force up there.
Yeah.
So you couldn't. I mean, you turned somebody in for something or complained about something, and then you got called before the priesthood council with your dad.
Yeah.
So no, it was we just didn't complain, just worked. And as soon as I turned 18, I was like, I'm out of here. I'm going to go work for myself. So
Oh, good. So you two, somebody asks if you're polygamous or just traumatized by it. So
traumatized by it.
No, neither one of us actually ever lived polygamy. My first husband and I courted and dated a few girls and got really serious with one of them. And I talk about some of that in my podcast, but we never actually did it. I couldn't actually, I don't know. We got so close that I was just like, I don't think I can do this. You know, and when you watch how miserable your parents are too, it's hard to say, yeah, I want to live that lifestyle. It's really hard to say that's a good idea. So
as a young age, I was like, absolutely, I'm not going to live this at all. I wanted to get out of the compound.
Yeah.
I was ready to leave probably when I was 13, 14, and we were just waiting for that day when we could turn 18 and legally leave. So
yeah.
Sorry.
This is absolutely, you're talking about these ages.
Yeah.
Where he's saying working and then thinking about leaving. And this is a time that's very important for our states, Montana and Idaho, because they are working again to get those younger workforces back in. And this is one of the reasons why.
Right.
Is because of the compound life. Is because they have so many people who still believe in that and want the kids back working.
Right.
And here you are saying not being educated. You don't know what your true rights are as a citizen of the United States because you're living in this bubble.
Right.
So when you leave that at 18, what does that feel like? Do you even understand what it is that you're walking out of or walking into?
We were raised that was the only safe place on earth you could be and to get into heaven. So when I chose to leave, I chose hell and damnation. But at that point, that seemed like a better
option
in life for me at the time, is to choose that hell. I just would rather be damned to hell for eternity and live my own life. And I love my family. I love my brothers and sisters, love my moms and dad, but I absolutely did not want to live that misery. They weren't happy. They weren't happy married together. They just were doing it because they had to get into heaven. And I wanted to marry somebody that I loved, and we could have, and I wanted to know my kids. I wanted to know their names. 39 of us, I was always called my oldest brother's name. So that's just the way it was. So we all answered to our different names, or the same names. When he was looking at us and talking to us, it didn't matter who he called you. We would answer. So.
Right.
And he was ex-military, so yes sir, no sir. So we were very well trained as little army kids. So
so like those kids that we saw on Sister Wives, when they stopped with that family and they had to come out, march out and salute and do all of that.
Yeah, we actually haven't watched about 90% of Sister Wives. This season is everyone we know watched season 1, and then everyone we know stopped watching it because it just wasn't. It didn't feel real.
It wasn't real. It's starting to get real now when they can actually tell how they honestly feel about stuff that's been going on in their lives as it's come apart. But they were trying to put on that pretty show piece of what polygamy is essentially supposed to look like.
Right.
And it wasn't. So
you know, I have to say, I fell for it the first season. I was like, oh, they're living it just like on Big Love, and they're doing it in like this happy, everybody seems happy. But then as the years would go by, it was like, not so much.
Well, we would watch it too, and I'd be like, that's going to be a fight later. That's going to be a fight later. That's a sideways comment. And we would say those, we would watch that. And so, I mean, of course, it was a huge deal when the show came out. Everybody was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they're going public. We got to go watch this. And then we all watched it and went, okay, well, if that's what they're going to do, then I didn't want to watch it. It just frustrated me. And so then this year is the first season that we've watched every episode. And we will probably go back and watch some of it. We've watched parts of it where like people will send us a clip and say, hey, what do you think about this? Like we watched I think our followers don't like us very much. And they're like, can you go watch the purity speech? And we're like, do we have to? So we did that and then did some commentary on that. So we've watched little pieces like that, but it's definitely, it's a lot of what they're saying. And it's not, and I've said this before, it's not that they were trying to deceive the world about polygamy. I don't think they were. I think they were just always putting their best face forward. And so, that's just what happens. It's like, you would have people come and visit you, like Corey's dad. Mm-hmm. Corey's dad was one of the founders up there in Montana, and the prophet would go stay with them all the time, or go up there and stay by them all the time. And the family has to put their good foot.
We had to be on best behavior when people came to visit. So
it's like when somebody comes from corporate.
Mm-hmm.
Right, exactly. Exactly. And so then, and the dads are, I did see a video recently where they were trying to do a family picture, and Cody's looking at all the kids and he's like, you better sit down and shut up. That's the real polygamy right there. Yeah.
That moment was a real, for me, like, this is what he's really like. Cause he was, you guys better sit down and shut up. And I was like, oh, as soon as the cameras are off.
Oh, yeah. Those kids got it hard.
Yeah.
I remember Robin saying, well, sometimes he gets scary with the kids. Well, all the time, if you were stepping out, sometimes you wouldn't even do anything. You were just in a general area where somebody was making noise or doing something, and we all got punished for the same thing. Yeah. Or all yelled at, or all called into a family meeting. And so,
like, how are you supposed to know who did it when you got 30 kids?
Right? Right?
We lived prison rules. The
Corey
kids
calls them
never
prison.
told on each other. We had these rules where if something happened, we all took the blame because they couldn't beat 39 of us all at the same time. So
Yeah.
so they would just like, and it was, you just didn't tell on other brothers and sisters in the house. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we protected each other that way. So
Yeah. Yes. It was a crazy way to grow up for sure. And that's why we try to like ease into some of our stories because we'll traumatize people listening to them. And for me, I always thought, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I didn't grow up in one of those crazy, communities. Because really, there's a bunch of different types of polygamists. You've got like the compound kids, you've got the suburban kids, you've got the independents who don't belong to any church. They're just independently living polygamy somewhere. And then that would be considered like the Dargers, if you've ever watched anything on the Dargers,
Yep.
which are great people. I've known them for years. They live up the street from us.
Okay.
But then you've got those, and then you've got like people like the Kingstons, the Order. So there's a bunch of different types of polygamists. They're not all just, and I thought, oh, I grew up in the AUB. That's the
That's a good
least cringy out of all of them. But it's really not.
no, and we grew up on the compound, which was more like the FLDS. Yes, we didn't have walls up around the house or the place, but they had their own police force. They policed themselves. So,
Yeah. And Corey's dad was a judge up there. So if you got in trouble, Corey's dad was the judge and
Yeah.
usually passed the sentencing for the.
And since he wouldn't remember who you are, you would get in trouble. Just
Yeah.
like,
one of the other brothers had to go get in trouble because he called the wrong name.
No, it was them, dude.
It's so hilarious. Yeah, Corey I used to say, you should just really just go with this. And whenever someone calls you, because there's one brother that he looks like more particularly than other. Every time they call you that, just be like, yep, that was me. And then when he gets the blame for everything. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Could outsiders drive through your town?
Oh yeah, they do all the time. Well, up there, yeah, they do all the time. Can outsiders drive through Pinestone? They
yeah.
do all the time.
Yeah.
You will always see cars that will slow down, and then they'll just like slowly go through town and watch
Which
things.
is not, this is not an area where you normally have travelers going through.
No.
No, it's up on the mountain. It's just a little tiny town or city now. Pinesdale's a city. But it's you have to drive up on the mountain.
Yeah.
And then you can drive through it and come back down. So a lot of people drive through it when they're going up some of the canyons to go fishing and things like that. There's a lot of canyons.
Yeah.
I think Pinesdale covers like 3 different canyons. And so people drive up through it to get to those Forest Service canyons.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they
Yeah.
really are looky-looing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Corey's mom like literally lives on the mountain with 100-foot trees all around. I mean, it's so beautiful. I
It's
love it
gorgeous
up there.
area.
Yeah, I love it. And my kids loved it. They loved growing up there. You know, and of course I married my first husband up there, not up there, but he was from there. And so all my kids have been going up there since they were tiny and they love it. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful country. So, I don't think we're seeing your comments too, right? Just the ones that are on
Oh,
ours.
you're not seeing mine? Okay.
No, it's fine.
No,
I just wasn't
yeah.
sure if we were seeing both of them or if it's just.
Somebody asked if we're not part of the AUB anymore. We're not Mormon, so no, we don't follow any faith,
We're not in any organized
we don't
religion.
organize religion. We're done with being.
I
told what
think
to do.
that's, yeah. So I think that's interesting that you say that because of the Brown family, it sounds like they're done with organized religion as well.
Yeah.
And it seems to be a common theme when going through these extreme.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, there's religion and there's extreme religion, right? Just like
Right.
anything else. But especially when you go through it in extreme, you just want to, done. I'm so done with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and most people, if they leave the AUB, they'll transition into Mormon and into the Mormon church, or if they're leaving the Mormon church, sometimes they'll transition into polygamy. So it kind of goes both ways. But most people will transition into the Mormon church because it's like one step down from where they're at, they feel. And then once they get in there, then they're like, wait a second, this is really no different than the cult I just came from. And so then they'll go into like non-denominational Christian church is typically what will happen. And then they'll stay somewhat active in non-traditional or non-denominational Christians. And then eventually a good majority will just fall away and not be a part of any organized religion. It's so trauma inducing to so many people. And when I say I get a little bit of PTSD, it's not like it's, we've done so much healing through our process that I don't watch it and be like, oh my God, I can't function for 5 days. I don't do that at all. It's just like, oh, that really pissed me off.
Well, it's just, I've been away from it for more than I was with it. I was in it 18 years and I've been away from it for 36 years now. So double what. And so going back into it, I have to get in a mindset when I go up to visit my moms now, just to even go, I disliked growing up in Pinesdale so much that when I go up there, I enjoy the family, but I'm breathing a sigh of relief when I'm leaving the place. So so it's
how does your mom feel about you not living the life and yet you go back and visit? Like, does she give you any hard time? Or
she doesn't. She's sad that because she had 7 children and none of those children are part of the AUB. So out of 39 children that my dad had, there's 3 of them still in the AUB. There's probably a handful in the Mormon church, a handful in Christian churches, different Christian churches, and then the majority of the kids don't even. We had to go to church so much. We're like we don't have to do that anymore. So we don't follow any church. We go out in nature for Sunday and
spend time with your family,
with our kids and fish. I love fishing still. That's one thing I enjoyed growing up. So there's not a high retention rate with children in the AUB.
Well, in polygamy in general, unless you're like in the Kingstons where they force you to do stuff like that. And so, out of my dad's 34 kids that I grew up with, only like 5 of them still live that way. So there's not a real high retention rate. Everyone typically does fall out. But a good portion of my family, I'd say probably half of my family is still pretty active in a Christian church. And then my dad being the prophet right now, he actually will go to the Christian churches for all the baptisms, all the blessings, any of the ordinances that they do. He will go and attend all that stuff. So
okay. So he's trying to be supportive of
Well, and my little brother passed last year, and we held it at the Christian church. So my mom did not want it at the AUB church, and so we just went ahead and held it at the Christian church because that way they're so welcoming to everybody, where the AUB is not welcoming.
Okay, so that's why she didn't want it at the AUB.
Right.
Everybody wouldn't be welcome.
Right, and he was disabled, and they live in a small town, and everyone in the town knew him. He was like the friendliest. He was 28, almost 29, just a little bit away from his, but he had Down syndrome, and so everybody knew him, and he was just like everybody's best friend in town. So my mom just wanted to make sure that everyone could be there for it.
Awesome.
Yeah, so
the AUB has required that if you come into their
buildings,
they're not as welcoming. That if you are coming into their building, then you have to have kiss the ring. You have to have some sort of
in to the belief.
ID to come in. You talk to a bishop. You're worthy to come into their property, and I am not worthy to come into their property. So
whatever. Nor am I.
I know, right? I know.
But here's what's interesting to me is they don't welcome everybody into their church. This is some sacred place, but they feel fine going to other people's sacred place.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, when my dad goes, he holds the utmost respect for the process of whatever's happening. But yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
because they live a higher law, so they're should be welcome to come
Or
into
they can
any
go down with the
lower law. Yeah,
Oh,
mingle among the sinners, and
okay.
that makes them even more righteous. But
Oh, because
yeah,
then they did their good deed.
there you
Oh,
go.
There you go. There you go. Well, and somebody asked the question, does your dad do the stuff that Cody said with the baptisms, like try to be a part of it so it's done right? He does not. No. Nope.
Yeah.
He believes that if they're going to go and they're going to commit themselves, the only thing my dad asks is that, like, for him, it's really important that his kids dedicate their life to Christ. And he doesn't want to impede that any more than he feels like, I'm one of the very oldest. And so he struggled with me a lot, especially when I left and stuff. And he just isolated some kids and had some really bad relationships. And so I feel like he's really tried to heal those by not continuing those with the younger kids. So he does not try to get himself involved in it. He doesn't want to be, and he'll actually usually just sit in the audience and never say a word through the whole process.
yeah.
And my dad had a first wife I have two older brothers from the first wife. My mom was the second wife, so I was actually the first child born under the covenant of plural marriage, and so I was supposed to be
Same thing here. Yeah,
we're
both.
we're
golden
supposed
children.
to be golden children, and I was disobedient. I didn't want to be a part of it, and that I think broke their heart the most. But yeah.
I think what we're seeing specifically with Cody, and then now he's like, forget about it. I don't even believe this anymore myself. But he felt like a failure when all of his kids were like, we don't want to do that. But I did so well at trying to sell this life to you. No, you didn't.
No, you didn't. Kids see it. Well, and that's the thing too. There's a scripture that says, "By your fruits you shall know them." Well, when none of your fruits want to live that way, then it kind of makes you wonder, like, what kind of example did you set?
Yep.
So
Right.
Yep. And so, and it's a sad environment, and especially with the sexism and the racism and all the other isms that are a part of it, it's hard to, find common ground, especially when you have 34 kids. One of them's going to be bisexual, gay, whatever it is. One of them's going to fall in love with a different race, a different nationality. Like, it's just going to happen. There's just no way around it. And so when you don't experience that natural love and affection from your parents because you've chosen that route, then how the other kids see that too. And so for being an all loving community, it's really not all loving. So
it's all loving if you follow their rules and laws and pay your tithing and basically worship the prophet and the prophets before. And if you have any questions about it, you're possessed and you need to be
pray harder.
Alienated from the community.
You need to pray harder. Yeah.
Well, it depends. If you're a boy, then you need to leave the community. But if you're a girl, you need to pray harder, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, when I got divorced from my first husband, I literally, I'm not even kidding you, had people showing up at my front door. Because my baby was 1. I was 25, so I was still kind of a pretty hot commodity. And my baby was 1. And I literally had married men show up on my front door with their wives trying to talk to me. And then when Corey, I was so mad at Corey because he was like, I'm going to go ask your dad about you. And I'm like, the hell you are? I got married a week after I turned 17. Like, I've been out of the house for, 10 years at that point. I'm like, my dad hasn't financially supported me since I was like 12. I'm like, you're not asking him, but Corey does.
It was the teachings we were taught. My dad. It was a teaching I was taught to let.
You have to do that before you can do court. You have to get permission. Yeah.
Right.
You have to get permission, and I didn't get permission, and so then she was like, "Too bad."
My dad told him no.
Yeah.
My dad told him no, and I was 20. So I was 26 at this point. And my dad says, no, you need to stay away from her because she's going to marry someone who already has an established family that can just take care of her and her children. And I'm like, no, I'm not. And so then Corey gives me this hug because I'm like, hey, let's just go back to my house and chat about it. So kiss me this hug goodbye. And my dad comes storming out of the house and he was like, did that boy hug you when I told him to stay away from you? And I'm like, what? You did what? And that was the first time in my life that I ever stood up to my dad. And my dad's like, I told him he couldn't date you. And I was like, you don't get to make that decision. And my dad was like, excuse me, what did you just say to me? And I was like, yeah, you don't get to make that decision. I'll date Corey if I want it. That wasn't your permission he was asking. It was more just like, this is what we're doing. And my dad was furious. He didn't come to our wedding either. So he was pretty pissed about it.
Wow.
But after we had our first child together, and it looked
Well,
like
I guess
I was,
it's real if they're having kids.
Yeah.
Right.
it looked like I was hanging around. Now we get along great. So
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So now now he loves Corey way more than he loves me. He doesn't want to have anything to do with me, and because I started my podcast. Well, and I've chosen to stay away from him, just for the way he handled my disabled brother's death. I just took a step back and just needed to be away from him for a while. So yeah, he adores Corey. I mean, I turned 50 last year and he didn't even acknowledge it. But Corey's birthday's a couple days ago, and he's like, hey, my precious son, how are you? So it's, it is what it is.
Yeah, that sounds like Cody. That sounds like Cody.
Oh, so much. I mean, that's what's so hard to watch. Some of this, like my ex-husband, you'd think that there can't be a man worse than Cody. Oh yeah, there can. My ex-husband is pretty right up there, but Cody's MO is pretty typical for all polygamous men. Some of the stuff he says to his kids, I'm just like, you jackass.
Well, and a lot, especially in this, I think the last 2 seasons, he's been saying, we're not a part of the AUB. We've distanced ourselves from them. We don't support the leaders. He's saying all those things, but he still believes in the core teachings of it. Him and Robin both. You can hear it in some of the way that they talk about the other wives and how they have fallen. And so he still uses a lot of the AUB lingo.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I wonder how he even picked that up so much, because he didn't enter into that until after his mission.
So he would have been probably 21 when he came in. I met him the very first day he ever came to the AUB. Is the first time I ever met him. And everyone was instantly in love with him. He was like fresh blood, new blood.
Well, that's what I think a lot of people are like, why did he get all these women and why is everybody swooning after him? I'm like, you're a small community and some new kid walks in.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's all it takes.
Yep. Oh, and so many girls were so in love with him. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, Mary's always been a sweetheart. I've always gotten along with Mary very well. We are very similar in our personalities. And so... Yeah, I actually had a party at my house, and her and Cody showed up it was a Halloween party, and they ended up coming to the Halloween party, but nobody knew they were dating yet. And so it was kind of like one of those situations where they were like, devastated girls left that party because Cody and Mary showed up together. And so it was just funny because everybody was like, what? How can he be taken already? He just caught here. So,
Why were they devastated? They just had to wait a few months.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's what I said. Just give it a couple months. I mean, my ex-husband
We'll be
started...
looking for another.
like almost right when we got back from our honeymoon, my ex-husband started looking for wife number 2. So it happens pretty quick.
So they were courting somebody pretty quickly.
Yeah.
It didn't work out.
Yeah.
There's rumors that it was someone who was underage. I mean, this is...
Well... I mean, my ex-husband was 25 when we got married, and I turned 17 8 days before we got married. So I was a week into 17. The girl he was courting seriously was 16.
Yeah.
And then so we were pretty young. And underage marriages don't happen a lot in the AUB, but they do happen. They are absolutely there.
I should say that I believe in the areas that they were doing this, 16 wasn't underage. I think 16 was the age of consent for marriage.
Yeah. I think 14 is
14 was
14's the age of Utah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I know a lot of people like, oh no, it was underage, which, okay. I would not condone a 21-year-old getting with a 16 at all.
No.
Also, it wasn't against the law.
Right. Right. Well, and for me, yeah, our light went out. So like I was just noticed, why are we so dark? But yeah, he was 25, so he was significantly older. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
you had
not a lot older now that I'm an adult, but as a child, it felt a lot older. It felt like
No,
we were,
it is. And maturity wise, that's an extreme difference. In
Right.
life experience, that's an extreme difference. Because we go through, growth spurts. High school is a growth spurt. And then out of high school is a definite growth spurt.
right.
Between high school and here, yeah,
Right.
don't touch that.
I know. I did a video on my senior year of high school. I was working full time and having a baby. So I got pregnant right out of, because you are not allowed to use birth control of any sort.
Right.
And I got pregnant right out of the gate. And I had a baby 3 days shy of us being married 9 months. And so it was just like, there he was. And so that was my high school year. I got married at the end of June. And yeah, all my friends, everyone I knew was finishing high school. And I was getting ready for a baby. So my oldest is going to be 33 in a couple of weeks. So
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
And I'm a slow mover. I didn't get married till I was 30. So
Hey, good for you though.
31.
I think you were 31 when we got married, weren't you?
Well,
Yeah, I think you had just turned 31.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you were his first?
Yeah, I was his first wife. Yep. I actually, because he was like, I'm done with these.
Yeah.
And I'm never going to date a crazy polygamist chick. He calls them crazy polygamist chicks. And then I got divorced, and I knew him, and we were friends, and I just thought he was so sweet and so kind, and his character was so good. And my kids adored him already. They were already friends with him. And so then I asked him out, and he was just like, I can't go out with you. You're married. I'm like, I'm not married anymore. And so then, he got like mentally dumb at that point when he realized that I was available. And then,
Wait, so we can,
yeah, exactly.
I got all nervous. So
Yeah. Well, and then I asked him to marry me because I was watching him sit on the floor play with my baby was 1 when I got divorced, but then he was 2, and I'm watching him play on the floor with my 2-year-old, and I'm like, this is what life is really about. Like, it's never going to get any better than this. He's going to love my kids the way that I love my kids. And so then he was sitting there, and I was like, hey, do you want to get married? And he looks at me like, are you serious? And yeah, let's get married. And he's like, all right, let's do it.
And then you got in the car, and then you.
Yeah, it was a quick, well, we dated for about 1.5 years before we got married.
Oh, you did. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so, did you have like a full-on wedding at that point?
We didn't. We were like, we're only going to invite immediate, like our siblings.
it was a huge wedding because it was our
Okay,
siblings.
I know. We're only going to invite our siblings. So it's
Yeah.
only 500 people there.
Yeah. And we still had 150 people there with just inviting just our mothers and all of our siblings.
Yeah.
And then Corey did invite some aunts and uncles from his
My mom's
side of the family because he, like I said, he'd never been married. But I just didn't feel like I could spend money on stuff like that when I had 3 children.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
we didn't even go on a honeymoon. We went on a 2-week road trip and took the kids to Yellowstone and went to Montana so that they could see, be up there with the whole family. And then that Christmas we took them to Disneyland for like family vacation. So yeah, we never even went on a honeymoon. Just but we spent less than $1,000 on our wedding total.
This sounds to me a lot like Christine and David. Like, just we're at a point where we know what marriage should not be. And when you find the person, they want to involve everybody in your world and embrace them. And that's what you guys did.
Yep. Yeah. And we love it. Like I mean, it worked good for us and we're happy with the way that it turned out. And, our kids, my oldest, I had a 2-year-old when we got married and a 6-year-old and a 7-year-old or 8-year-old, something like that. So for them, we wanted them to feel included. But we did the whole walk down the aisle thing. I just walked down the aisle with all 3 of my kids instead of like anyone else. So yeah, it was great. It was great. So yeah, that anniversary. So we've been together about 25 years now.
Wow.
Yeah. Not married, but we've been together for 25 years.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. Time's gone by so fast. But yeah, Cody and Mary were actually even in my first wedding.
Really?
Yeah.
So was I.
Yeah, and so was he. Yeah, he was there at my first wedding. So
We kept in touch.
we did. Well,
You were going back on the wedding videos as people were like, congratulations. You're like,
did.
who's that guy?
He was like, I came to your first wedding. I'm like, no, you didn't. And he's like, yeah, I did. But my best friend was married to his brother. So he ended up coming to the wedding and then signed my wedding book and everything. I'm like, no way.
Oh
but
my
yeah.
God.
Yeah.
So did you sign it and say it's not going to last long? It's like
I didn't even know her at the time.
We didn't know each other at all.
I didn't know her at all. So
yeah.
Yeah. Corey's little sister says, you all didn't need an 11-day honeymoon. No, we did not need an 11-day honeymoon. That one is one that blows my mind about sister wives. Like, talk about the most selfish thing you can possibly do.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, out the chute, I don't know how they didn't see it, how Robin is sitting here denying it. But even Cody says, when Janelle and Mary specifically were sitting there and pointing it out and saying, she's getting this, she's getting that. And then Janelle says, but when he sat me down and explained to me that some people just need more, I got it. And I'm like, that is not the lesson we should be learning today.
No.
That's not what they would have been teaching in the AUB either, because
there's no way she would have been allowed that.
You're supposed to be getting married to have children, not for this love, not for the connection part of it. You're supposed to marry and raise up a righteous seed, and that behavior is just going to cause jealousy. It might have worked with just one wife, your very first wife, but once you start getting multiple wives, all it's going to do is create jealousy among all the wives. So
yeah. Well, which people look back and they're like, oh, Mary had this big wedding, which I don't think it was a fancy wedding by any means. I mean, you would know, right?
Yeah, I went to their wedding.
Yeah. So it wasn't like it was a big hoopla. It was like a community wedding, right?
Yeah, it was at a church building. Yeah.
At a church building, yeah. But when Cody got married to Robin, he had the private ceremony. Mm-hmm. He had the backyard party. They had the family union party, whatever it was. And then they had the kids' adoption party. And all of this, we haven't stopped celebrating Robin. I'm pretty sure he's having a party for her right now.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's insane to me. So the private wedding, that all the wives would have gone to that. Yes. And so that's in the church building. And I actually done a video on that where I talk about like how that process works. So like Christine would have been the one to give Robin to Cody, because she was the last wife. Mm-hmm. And so we talk a little bit about how hard that I watched when I got married. I was a week into 17 and I watched that process happen with another couple. They were getting in the AUB. Everyone gets married on one day a month, just one Saturday a month. So everyone in the church who wants to get married has to come to the church building on that one day. And really? Then, so pretty much everyone has like the same anniversaries. And so then you watch other people get married and you get married.
It's so they don't forget.
Well, it's such a process to do it. And so they only do, it's called an endowment session. They only do one endowment session a month. Like that for the marrieds. So yeah. So that's why they don't allow anyone to come into that process, because it's like the temple for the Mormons.
Well, that makes total sense to me. But what I thought, and we're going back a few years, so memory is foggy, but I thought that they already had left, quote unquote, the church by the time that they brought Robin in. Or I could be wrong. Maybe
they were full on active in the.
Were they? Okay.
Yeah, I was really surprised to see them leave the AUB. I never thought that would have happened. Not in a million years.
Really?
I never expected that. And my dad was really concerned and upset when they decided to go public. They were strongly advised not to do it. And but Christine, they approached Christine with the idea. Christine was on a council, or like on a little committee with one of my other mothers. And somebody had brought this to them, and Christine was like, oh, we could do it. And so, but they were highly advised. Like, my other mother was like, yeah, absolutely not. We're not doing that. Because my dad had already done interviews like Big Love. He'd already done that 20 years prior. And so, yeah, he strongly advised against it, and they did it anyways, which is fine. But they were warned, if you do this show, it will tear apart your family. And so, yeah.
So the question is then, was it the show or was it the actions?
I think obviously it's both, but in the show, everything's being recorded. The behavior of the Brown family is no different than any other polygamous family. They just don't have it all on recording to see it. They just don't get to do tell-alls where they talk shit about each other behind each other's backs. You know what I mean? That's the only difference. And so women will stay in these relationships for years longer than they should. Like, here's my mom, 50 years. Right? Yeah, because they're being gaslit for years. And so that's why it's not, but the Brown family is really no different. And I remember telling my dad, you know what, if anyone could show how polygamy should be lived, it's the Browns. Like, they are great.
Well, it's a combination of three things. It's, first of all, it was public. So public
scrutiny.
The wives were able to hear what the other wives were saying behind their back because it was filmed.
Yep.
Number two, number two, they went public. Number three, he found his soulmate, and he has treated his soulmate and his soulmate's children different, where he might not have been doing that with the original three. He was trying to be equal, but he hadn't found somebody that he wanted to be around 24/7. He found his soulmate with Robin, and Robin started doing exactly what she was trained to do from childhood, and she got in there and took over as the favorite wife and started sowing division within the other three. So
is that
my opinion only?
In childhood, let's ask about that part, because she made a comment when they went in to go do the divorce paperwork, where she said that she'd seen other wives use something like that as an excuse to get what they wanted and run, right? Is that something that you feel that between the women are kind of a top behavior, like get your claws in there and get what you can because there's very little to have?
I wouldn't say that it's like a general thing. I was never taught that. My mom was never even remotely close to that. I think it's girls who watch their mothers or their other, their aunts or whatever. I think there's like a specific breed of women who do this, because most of the women don't do what we've watched Robin do.
Right.
And they don't come in and they don't, so like my mom never did anything like that. But then my dad had two wives that did. And when that second favorite soulmate came in, it was a big deal. Like, those two women clashed hard. Yeah. And so yeah, I don't think it's taught necessarily, but man, she came in, and I've said this from my very first live that we ever did, that I thought Robin was in it for a long game, and she had a long game going, and that's what she was doing. And I've never met Robin. I never even knew she existed until Sister Wives. Corey did, but I didn't. And so I was just watching her like, you've got to be kidding me. And what's funny is that we talked about this a couple times. Both of our mothers were here on Thanksgiving, and we've got these two little 70-plus-year-old ladies sitting on our couch watching Sister Wives, and they've both been polygamous women for over 50 years of their lives, and they're like, who is this wench? And talking about Robin, like going off about it. So it's funny because it's not, unfortunately, every single family has a wife like Robin.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying it's not something that's taught normally.
Okay.
So.
And I hadn't watched, you brought up the divorce from Mary and Robin legally. I hadn't watched that. I just went back. They were asking me some questions about it.
Uh,
that was one of the most disturbing season, because I watched the whole season, because there's multiple different things that would cause rifts within the family. First of all, Mary was getting a divorce, had talked to Cody and Robin, but it felt like the
Where's
other
Janelle
two
and Christine?
wives were out of even the conversation. They were just told, "Hey,
Afterwards, yeah. I mean, after they made the decision, I should say.
after the decision's made, he's going to marry Robin now." Now they're being told, and they don't have a choice in the matter.
Right.
And then he adopts the kids, and I was watching Dayton going, I'm confused when they tell, and so they're going to therapy. They're going to get this family therapy, but I don't see any of the kids. I hope they had kids in therapy, but Dayton was confused why his dad would give up rights to him. And now the other thing that I saw, which they put on TV, was he's giving them a new name and a blessing. And he's doing that on purpose to take away the lineage of her ex-husband. Her ex-husband now has not only given up the legal rights to his kids,
all spiritual rights,
but now Cody has taken over the spiritual rights by renaming them, giving them a blessing, and renaming them Browns. So
yeah. I wake up one morning and Corey's out there and I'm like,
so
what were you doing
frustrated
all night? Where were you? And he was like, I couldn't quit watching this season. He's like, my heart is torn apart for these
those
kids.
Yeah.
And we have said that from the very first ever we started talking about this on any sort of public platform, was kids are the collateral damage in this lifestyle.
Polygamy is hard on the man, it's harder on the women, and it's the hardest on the kids.
Yeah.
So
I agree. So we had somebody ask your dad's younger and prettier wife, was she like Robin or not?
Oh yeah. Oh, and to this day she still is. And so yeah, she's very, very much like Robin. And so my mom just recently left my dad and was leaving the polygamy together. And really, I mean, her actions were some of the final straws. My mom was like, I'm just done. Like, I can't do this anymore. I'm tired of this. Mm-hmm. And she's been married to my dad I was like 15 when they got married. So she's been married to my dad for 35 years.
Wow.
So, wow. And she can just be, I mean, and I feel bad because a lot of my siblings watch this, but it's hard. It's hard to deal with some of that. So, and just from a child's perspective. So that's where we've always said that, like, I don't even give a crap what these adults went through. They made these decisions on their own. Mm-hmm. These children chose it.
What they're going through for me, I had a specific problem when they were doing the home sermon, and Robin did have that scene that made me just, what are you saying about these kids' father? And I felt like that was a part of that plan of separation between the kids and him. And it made me really not entirely believe Robin's story.
Right.
Yeah. Right. And I don't know if you know him at all, but you do know him?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I assumed at that point that Robin was just lying.
She did him pretty dirty, I think.
Yeah.
And not everybody gets that put on national television or international television. Did he make mistakes? Probably. Did she make mistakes? Absolutely. Yeah. And so that's the thing, is not everybody gets all that dirty laundry aired all over national television. I mean, I can only imagine the psychological and emotional damage this is going to do to those children. And we're seeing it. I mean, you're seeing it with the kids right now. With Aurora and I mean, they're not kids, they're adults at this point, but you're seeing the stunt
like kids. Yeah.
Right. And so, and Corey, I never pushed Corey to adopt my children. No. Never pushed Corey for my kids to take his name. No. Nothing like that. I know.
No. We took child classes. The kids got to go to therapy themselves, talk about their frustrations, because we wanted to have all of the parents involved to raise up healthy, intelligent children.
Right.
Good.
And so, yeah, that's, I don't know, that's Cody Brown and Robin's way of raising children by alienating the other, especially a father that you can tell Dayton loves. He was stunned. He's sitting there stunned, like, I don't understand what just happened.
Yeah.
And that's heartbreaking to me because he loved his dad. And now he's getting a new name. He's getting this blessing. He's loved his dad. And now he's getting a new name. He's getting this blessing.
Maybe in time he'll be ready to talk about it. Oh, am I still here?
Nope, we are. We just it looked like we disconnected for just a second, but we came right back. So yeah. So no, and that's one of the things that infuriates Corey and I so much about this lifestyle is the fact that these kids really are the collateral damage, and then you add that to television, like how irresponsible of these parents to do that to their children. And it's infuriating to watch. So
a lot of the stuff that Robin and Cody are saying were guilt trips that we were given as kids to be in line, to be righteous. And it's frustrating now, especially that I'm an adult, where I'm like always checking with myself. I do not want to guilt trip my children. They're free thinkers. I want them to grow up healthy, intelligent human beings that can make their own decisions in life. So,
I don't, so when you say with the AUB and then you have the FLDS and the LDS, and I think when it comes to the children and having a divorce and new parents specifically, that in my personal experience, all of those have had ties to demonize or weaponize their ex. And I don't know if it's like a fear of I'm going to lose you forever. It's a battle to keep you or whatever it is. But it's like, this is so harsh. Why are we doing this to the kids?
Well, they say divorce is second to death for a child, for anyone in a family unit. Divorce is like literally like a death to a child. And so why add that extra trauma to it?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
It doesn't make any sense. You up?
well, and it's because the father is not a part of the AUB, and so they have to take on this where they're being sealed to the Cody family, the Brown family, for time and all eternity, to save their souls, because he's a apostate, and I'm an apostate, and so we are lower than even Gentiles, and so everything has to be taken. They have to be demonized down to that apostate. Yeah. They knew the truth. They were given all the benefits of God's kingdom, and we rejected it. And so we are the lowest of the low. So.
Yeah. Yeah. So her ex-husband was born and raised in the polygamist community as well. And then
was he in Montana?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he actually he lives in the middle. So my ex-husband lives at the top of the hill. Robin's ex lived in the middle of the hill, and Corey lived at the bottom. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So you got the bottom of the hill.
Yeah.
Yep. We got all the shit. Shit rolls downhill.
Yeah.
Gosh. So yeah, we're gonna go up there in April, and we're probably gonna do a live or two while we're up there. So
where we grew
up. We're
up.
still gonna have snow there.
They probably will have a little bit. Yeah.
That's why I hated Montana too. It was snow all the time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So
there's like Montana has winter, summer, winter.
We're in Utah right now. We literally have like we haven't hardly had any snow all summer or all winter. It's been crazy.
Skiff here, skiff there.
It's been nuts. Are you in Arizona then? Or I guess we probably don't have to put that out there.
New Mexico. Yeah, I just moved from Washington State to New Mexico.
Oh, very nice. Oh, I bet it's beautiful down there. That's quite the climate adjustment.
Yes, I love it. I love it. I'm like, it's winter time and I can go outside in shorts.
That's awesome.
I wanted warmer climate. I didn't make it quite. I was heading down to California, and I stopped in Utah, and then got married and have been living here since. So
There you are.
I roped him into Utah. We do like it. Our kids are all here. Our family, Corey's got a huge chunk of his family that lives here too.
Yeah.
Because it's like another big stop of the AUB.
yeah, my mom's family, who were Mormon, all live down here. So
Okay.
so my mom's extended family's here in Utah. So
Yeah.
that's what I hung out with them. And
I don't know how many I have left in Utah. They've all lived, my cousins on my dad's side, they've all lived there at some point, but then they spread out and then they get up and spread.
Right.
Between Oregon, Idaho, Utah. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have one child. We have 5 children. I had the 3 when we got married. We had 2 children together biologically, and then we have only had one of those kids move out of state. So she moved to Florida, and then now she's just moved to North Carolina. So I'm like, what is happening in North Carolina? Why does everyone want to move there? So
It seems to be like a growing community over there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's building a home out there now, and and one thing that we did break with our children is, my oldest didn't get married till he was 28, and his wife is a couple of years older than him, and then our daughter just got married this last summer, and she was 30. And then
they're following my marriage track.
Right. And then our other daughter, so we have 3 boys and 2 girls, and our other daughter's 22 and not even close to getting married, which is, knock on wood, he says. Because it's something that we feel like it's generational, that we want to change in our kids. We don't want our kids to. And at one point I was actually worried. I'm like, oh my gosh, have I made my kids anti-marriage, like completely? Do they not want to get married? Because we just had one get engaged on Christmas, but he's 27, so he'll be 27 when he gets married too, or he'll be 27, maybe 28. And so, but his girlfriend's older than him, or his fiance now is older than him too. So it is something that we're glad we
getting married a lot later now, which is, I think, is great.
Yeah.
I don't think the powers that be think that's great because they want more Americans to fight for the country. But
I would agree with you on that.
It is so much more healthy, though, to wait and do the right thing. Like, I think about twins. I entered the military when I was 18. Hindsight, that wasn't the best idea, but it's, what you do. You either go to college or you go in the military, right?
Right.
But there's so many things that I did at 18. I'm like, I don't think that's the age to do things. I feel like 21, everything should be 21.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I tell my kids all the time, I'm like, you change you're a completely different person from the time, because it's like you go to high school and you're just like climbing this mountain, right? And then you graduate and it's like free drop. You're just like free falling. And you're like, what do I do now? And from the time you graduate high school until you're 25, you become a completely different person. Mm-hmm. Yes. And when you add, I was 23 and had 3 babies.
Yeah.
And so it's like, how do you even discover who you are? And that's one of the reasons, so many people are so judgmental and harsh with Christine and Mary and Janelle, because they're like, why are these women so dumb? Well, it's not that they're dumb. It's just that they literally don't even know who they are. And now we're watching them discover who they are, at 50. And when you're trying to make those, recognize that in yourself, and you're raising babies, how do you have time to do that? You just don't. Yeah. And you're not even just raising babies, you're raising babies and you're watching your husband sleep with somebody else. And you're watching them raise babies, and you know what I mean? And so these types of relationships have so many layers to them and so many dynamics to them, that how can you be healthy mentally, spiritually, and emotionally and even phically when you're the last person that you take care of. Mm-hmm. So
and it's oftentimes I think of it when I know I've entered myself into an unhealthy relationship and I need to get out. I have that anxiety where you just think about it, and you have those flutters going on, like, oh, I don't like this feeling. And I would imagine in my head that this is what the wives are going through all throughout the marriage, is having those flutters. And then they're being fed all of the happiness and joy when I see you once a week. Oh, I love you so much. And then walk out the door. And now you have that sick, fluttery feeling all over again.
Yeah.
And yeah, how are they supposed to focus on who they are when they're just constantly being put into that feeling, that emotion?
Right. Well, and that feeling that you're describing, it's like in the AUB, I was always taught, you have that, there's something wrong with you. You need to pray harder. You need to read your scriptures more. You need to go get a blessing from the priesthood leadership or your parents or whatever it is, to get yourself right with God so that you're not having these, unharmonious feelings. And so it's like that is a constant hanging over your head all the time.
Yeah.
And so then you question yourself.
For the men, it's fine.
Right.
You can have that jealousy. You can, yeah.
Well, and for the man too, if he gets that feeling where he's like, hey, you know what? I'm not jiving in this relationship anymore. I don't want he just doesn't go there.
Yeah.
He just doesn't go to her house.
Yeah.
He just basically is like, well, I guess I'll come over here once every 2 weeks or whatever. I mean, and we watched Cody do that on the Sister Wives where they're like, he hasn't been to my house in weeks.
Yeah.
And I don't understand how he justifies that behavior. And then he's surprised when Christine moves him out. Like, what did you think was going to happen? You didn't live here anyways,
Yeah.
So,
And he's surprised when Mary is chatting to somebody online.
exactly.
Well, and the reason he is surprised is because they had a sacred covenant over an altar where they covenanted to God that they would be together for time and all eternity. And by them kicking him out, by them chatting with somebody online, they are breaking that covenant and they will be damned to hell for the rest of eternity.
Right.
And so why would he was like, I'm surprised that they would risk that. I'm not that bad of a guy. You're right.
Well,
Right. Yeah.
but it's not, I have such a hard time with that in religion. Well, I should say organized religion, because it's organized religion where it comes from. Because to me, and look, I'm no professional. Yes, I have read the Bible in my lifetime once or twice. But to me, the whole thing of hell wasn't created to punish people for doing little shit. That's not the idea. And even the angel wasn't pushed down there because he was doing bad things and being punished. He was pushed down there because there was just disagreement in beliefs. You go put your beliefs over there, and I'm going to put my beliefs over here.
Right.
Yeah, all of a sudden hell becomes some sort of a punishment. You're going to like burn in hell or something. I'm like, great. So do I just bring SPF 30? I don't know. What?
Yeah.
Well, I grew up in Montana. It's really, really cold up there. Hell's
Can it
probably
be?
going to be
Yeah,
warm.
I will take hell.
Well, it's funny. One of the very first podcasts that I started talking about this publicly was we were raised in such a fear-based society that every decision that we made was based on fear. It was like, okay, I can live with this consequence or this consequence. Which one do I want? I'm going to either like live with God hating me or, whatever it is. So every decision we made was not in our best interest. It was in how can we avoid having heaven and hell, And so now that is one of the things we've really changed with our kids. Hey, make goal-oriented decisions. Make life choices that get you to where it is you want to go, not where you're afraid you're going to go if you don't make that decision.
Yeah.
And I remember being really, really little. I was probably, 8 or 9 when I said that to my mom. I was like, how come every decision we have to make is based on whether God's going to punish us or not? Why can't it be on, hey, this is the type of person I want? And so I started creating notes to myself, which is why I named the channel that, is because and then 444 is for transformation and manifestation. And so I started watching the women around me, because I would sit there and I'd watch them and they hated each other with a smile on their face.
Yep.
And so, but they hated each other. And so I would make notes of, hey, I want that characteristic. I want to be like this person. I want to be like this person. And I did make a few that were like, no way do I want to be like this person, But for the most part, I made the notes of what it is I wanted to be and who I wanted to be. Because we are in such a fear. I think in my experience, all organized religion can be so fear-based. And so that's why we don't subscribe to an organized religion, because we teach our kids to be good people. We teach them to be Christ-like. We teach them to be, but they don't need to be in a cult to do that.
Right. Yeah, my dad was the same way, leaving the LDS, and he was like, I'm never going to teach my kids that they're going to hell. That's not going to be it. And we did go with the neighbor to church, which I was in shock, the things that I would hear, because they would be like, marriage is just between a man and a woman, and you're going to hell if you do this, you're going to hell. I'm like, wait a minute, that's not what my parents told me,
Right.
And so I would have to go home and have a conversation with my parents and be like, well, here's what they said at church. And they're like, yeah, they're just telling stories. You're just taking the old lady. Don't worry about all that, But my dad, the same way, was like, I'm not going to say you're going to be punished for stuff. That's just not how it's going to work. Because, when I would get in trouble, it was your dad's going to do something to you, God's going to do something to you. And he's like, I don't want you to live in that kind of fear. So if you do something, just tell me and we'll figure it out.
That's how we are.
Yeah.
Yeah, and our kids are I feel like, and my experience with our children is they do feel safe and they feel loved, and they can come to us and talk to us about things that I would never have talked to my parents about, not in a million years, we did have a child who was questioning their sexuality for a long time. And at first I was like, how am I going to handle this? What am I going to do? Because it's new for me. I mean, we have a lot of family members who, who are either bisexual, whatever they are. But I had never experienced that with my own child. So I was like, okay, time to reprogram my brain right now so that I'm not just speaking unconsciously to this child who doesn't know or understand where they're at right now. So how do I become that strength for them when they're not sure what they're doing? Does that, and so I had to really talk to Corey a lot about it and say, I want to be conscious when we talk to our children about this kind of stuff. And so we've had to do a lot of conscious parenting, I feel. Yeah. So
I'm going to embarrass my oldest daughter. We had billboards on either side of the valley, and somebody had put up a billboard saying the end of the world was coming on this certain date. And she was like, oh my gosh,
she was so scared.
The end of the world. And I'm like, sweetie, you do not have to worry. We're going to go past that date. I have lived through so many apocalypses based on, and so that's what I loved in Big Love when she's like, your dad's been a little off on his prophecy. They're always prophesying the next end of the world. Yeah. And so then when that day came and passed, I'm like, everybody's doing it. You haven't grown up in a community where it's preached over the pulpit. Yeah. You just get to see it on the billboard and see, we made it past that date. So you'll survive. Everybody's going to tell you it's the end of the world.
New York City, and we'll see how many people are holding up signs with different dates on them.
Yeah. No, we've really tried to remove the fear. That's why I was like, why are you worried about the end of the world? We don't even talk about that.
We don't even talk about it. But she had seen those billboards. We grew up 86, 88, 96, 98, 2000, 2012. And they were all getting prepared, ready for it. And I'm like, I'm still here.
There was one last month, too.
Yeah.
Oh, darn, I missed it.
I know. I slept through that one. I forgot to wake up for it.
Yeah. Ended without me this time. I remember Y2K, and everybody was like hoarding all the water and all the toilet paper and all the dry foods. And I was like, you really don't think a computer can count from 99
to 20? Okay. Yeah. Well, and we grew up in we do ourselves. We do food prep and food storage, and we do that because it's good to be prepared for it. But it's not like our life.
It's not the end of the world.
Right. And my oldest, it's funny.
Lights go out.
He was when my oldest was 11, maybe 10 or 11. He looks at me one day and he was like, "Grandpa's a polygamist," and I was like, "Yeah," but I guess I had never really had a conversation with my kids about it. Yeah. And I was like, where do you think all these brothers and sisters come from? And because I'm the oldest and Corey's the oldest, our house is the house that everybody comes to. We have major get-togethers here. And so I'm like, where did you think like 40 of my brothers and sisters came from? They all didn't come from my mom. And they're like, my son's like, I guess I never really thought about it, but we had just kept them so far away from it that he didn't even realize that. And we hung out with my parents all the time. There's a big community park, and we would go there, and my dad would be there with 4 or 5 of his wives. They'd be there all the time. And this is a park that we've hung out at since I was a small child. Yeah. And so it's a big, like, Mother's Day. All the mothers are there with all their kids, you know, and stuff. And then we go to a big, huge family camp out once a year with all the mothers and all of the you know, and there's usually about 350, 400 of us there. Yeah. And just my dad and his wives and their kids and their kids. And so, yeah, so I was stunned when he did not realize my dad was a polygamist. I was like, wow, I guess I really haven't talked to you about this, have I? So,
but also kind of awesome that it hasn't been where did all these people come from? Who's this? Who's married to who? Who's with who? It's like, oh, we're a family. Who cares?
Yeah, and that's exactly how it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's exactly how it was. And that's what I loved about Corey's family when we got to know each other, is they're so similar to ours. You can't tell like which child belongs to which mother. And everyone just loves, like, they just get along so well. And that's why you really see the OG3 kids. Mm-hmm. They just blend and they just get along so well. And you can't tell who belongs to who. Yeah. And I love that because our family was very similar to that. And not a lot of families are like that. Right. There is a hierarchy. There is cliques. There is, you know, that kind of stuff. And
well, it ended up being that way when somebody else came in.
Yeah. And it did. And that's what's so sad is, you know, I have my own opinions about why she did that. I think, which we really haven't talked a lot about, you know, I think that she was concerned because a couple of the kids did come out. You know, they came out as different sexes. They came out, you know, you have Leon.
Well, that was after, though. That was after they got the families together.
Right. But then Robin protects her children from those influences.
Okay.
Even more so. And so you hear Mary now you're starting to hear some honesty from these women where they're like, yeah, Robin would ghost me for 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
And so now that's why in my experience, that's why is because she was sheltering her kids from the influences of these other children, not just from the ones that were, you know, like Leon or some of the other kids, not just from those kind of influences, but from alcohol or, you know, anything else that they're doing that they might disagree with.
Sex or dating.
Right. Yeah. Or living with a partner, like I think I think I read somewhere Maddie moved in with Caleb before she got married.
Well, she moved into but
right, and so that was influential to her children. So she umbrellaed them and kept them away from that. I've watched that happen over and over. I experienced that happening in my own family. We had one mom who would not bring her kids around because, you know, my mom's kids were so negatively influential on her children, you know, and so they wouldn't
swear or wear inappropriate clothing or different things, whatever they felt was not righteous.
Right.
So.
Well, and my mom has 11 children, and out of those 11 children, we have like, I want to say 7 of us have children of another nationality. Mm-hmm. And so that's right there. Shelter your kids away from that. So like my older 3 kids are Hispanic. And so you have, and then we have Japanese, we have like, you name it. And we've got like 7, I think it's about 7. I should probably add that up one day. Mm-hmm. And my mom just never taught us to see color. So we just didn't.
Yeah.
And so, so I think that's why Robin has kept her kids away and then just convinced them that the other kids don't like them instead of
that's
being honest.
What really bothered me is the times that we caught her saying things like that. They don't want to be around you. No, they sent you an invite. They sent you an invite. You decided you didn't want to show up.
Right.
That's not on. But yeah, she should play them. Oh yeah. So why does Tony love Robin so much? I'm going to throw my opinion about Tony out there because Tony and McKelty flip flop in my opinion. I think that they go with whoever's going to give them the best opportunity, maybe the most airtime or whatever's going on. That's what I think. But I also think that McKelty bought into Robin's story of life, premise, whatever you want to say out there, because she watched the kids for Robin. So she was put on some kind of a pedestal because I trust you with my children. And even though it was, she was using her to watch the kids for free and had absolutely nothing to do with her really trusting them, you know. But that formed McKelty to put Robin into a light that she wasn't in when she would talk to Tony about Robin. So possibly Tony didn't know who Robin really was.
I think that's so true too, because my own experience, I was 14 when my dad started courting this woman. I was, actually, I think I was 14 when he married her, and she did the same thing to me and really kind of took me under her wing. I would babysit for her for free all the time. I was always going over there to spend the night, to take care of her children for her. She had 3 children when she married my dad. And so, yeah, we have definitely, got to do this little puzzle thing really quick.
Oh, yeah.
And so I guess I have a little bit of empathy for McKelty because I experienced that same thing. And when I got burned by that, it was really painful because I didn't realize that I was just being used. I had no idea. And it was, you know, and then shortly I got married shortly thereafter. But it was hard because I wanted to believe that I was special. When you come from a group of 30 kids, 35, 39, like what makes you stand out? What makes you special? What makes you what makes you matter to other people? And so this person comes in and showers you with praises and affection and attention. And of course you want that. And so. And it
had no allies. I think the reason why it was so easy with McKelty to do that is because McKelty was a pleaser. McKelty liked to do things in order to receive the attention.
Yeah.
So she was like, oh, I'm getting attention. I love it.
Right.
Somebody asked, didn't McKelty stop liking Robin? Yeah, she did. I think she might like her. I don't know. She changes her mind a lot.
We don't know. We don't follow that very much. Yeah. We've never followed the McKelty story, or we don't follow her on social media or anything like that either.
Yeah.
We really were not going to talk about Sister Wives because it was because other people in the AUB, finally, I started my TikTok and I was actually just talking about like our experiences and our life stories. And then I had several other TikTok creators who are ex-AUB. And they're like, please comment on this, please. And I'm like, no, I don't know if I want to do that. Like, I don't know if I really. And finally, I watched the one of the previews for this season, and it just lit me up one night. And then I did a video about it, and it went viral. And then I was like, all right, I guess I'm talking about Sister Wives now. But because we hadn't really watched the show, I didn't feel like I had much.
Or the full buy-in,
Right, much to contribute about it. But now it's like. It's been fun to watch it because this is a subject we could talk about all day, you know, because it was our life. It was how we grew up. And so, but yeah, it's been interesting this season watching every Sunday. And then finally, like, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks ago, maybe we were watching it. Corey's like, oh my gosh, you need to record your reaction to this show. Cause I'm like, I'm going to freaking choke this man out. How can somebody be this stupid? You know? And so finally I started doing live reaction videos. Yeah. And then Corey's like, don't say that. You better delete. So then I have to delete it and start over.
I watch it live, but I can't show the TV, but I'll be live and watching it. So
okay.
You're watching my instant reaction and I'm like, oh, that didn't happen. This is one of the few shows that I know every moment of things that happen, which makes me sound so weird and obsessed. But it's relationship dynamics, right? And also on top of that, throughout the years that all of this has been happening with the should we legalize this, should we not, is also the gay marriage was always back and forth and questioning. So I'm like, okay, so what is the big difference between polygamy and gay marriage? Let's take a look at that, right? It's really a different lifestyle. It's very different because they have a lifestyle. Right. I don't, right? But they do have to navigate through all of this and this and this, and I just have relationships. So But for me to go back each time something happens, I'm like, that didn't happen. Season 3, go back and take a look.
That's
How do I
awesome.
know this?
Well, I guess we are starting to watch it because, like I said, Corey did that deep dive the other night. It was because we watched that reaction when I can't remember. Somebody said, "Go watch this." It was when Robin and Cody were talking about 69, and I was sick to my stomach when somebody brought that up on our live. I was like, "No, they did not." So we went and watched that, and then as we were watching it, that's when it rolled into Dayton finding out that his dad had given up legal rights, and the sickness on Dayton's face. And Corey and I were just like, Corey's eyes well up with tears, and I get like, what did we just watch? Oh my gosh. And so that's when Corey stayed up till like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning.
I was just frustrated that they're all going to therapy, but they're not letting him. Why aren't they sending the kids to therapy?
Yeah.
So that he can explain what he's feeling in that moment.
And their therapy was not.
It wasn't.
I did not agree with that therapist at all.
Yeah,
I didn't either.
It was a show for the show, so.
Oh,
Yeah.
definitely. But her whole, well, you just need to submit to your husband more. Seriously? What? Get out of here.
Yeah. That
AUB
Yeah.
AUB approved therapy.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No. And that's what's so funny too. Everyone's like, well, are all AUB men like this? And I'm like, well, no, not all of them, but 90% of them are. And so that's why Corey got kicked out. It's because he was nothing like any of those men. So people are like, are you worried about getting another AUB guy? And I'm like, no, Corey is nothing like. And it's because he's got a sense of humor. He can laugh about things. He can laugh at and he's got a kind heart where most of these men just don't have this kind heart.
Well, they're miserable. I believe that most of the men in the AUB are miserable because the minute they find that soulmate, that true love,
they can't have it.
Yeah, get a taste of, this is true love. If they're not miserable, or if they don't keep this equal connection with all of the wives, then it just goes downhill. So, and I mean, my dad had 9 wives, and I have to do the math, but he lost 3 or 4 of them to divorce too. So, at least. So, in fact, technically, my mom and the 2 wives that stayed with him were released from the AUB. So, and they stayed with him in sin. So,
Oh, wow.
So,
yeah.
I started a trend. I got excommunicated from the AUB, and then a lot of my family got excommunicated, including my dad and my parents. So,
yeah,
it's a good thing I did that.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I brought up on one of my podcasts too. Is that out of 350 grandchildren, I'm one of the oldest. I'm the 4th oldest biological grandchild, and I'm the first one to leave. So I was the first one to get married in the polygamist community, and then actually leave. No one had left before, and that's a hard shoe to fill. Like, it's hard to be in that place because I got so much grief for that. Like, look at the example that you're being. That's why I guess I look at Robin and trying to isolate her children, because I feel like people isolated themselves from me, and that was really hard, especially from my grandma. And then what's funny is some of the worst judgments I received from people are people who now have TLC shows. So, but some of them are no longer on air, but those were some of the harshest critics of me when I left. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. And it was did they have a show? One of them who had a show or was on a show was one of them that ended up spending time in jail for abuse. Was that? Oh, I don't know. Who went to jail for?
It was one of Cody's friends. He was on an episode of Sister Wives. Oh. But I don't remember if they tried to launch his own show too before all that happened, or if he was on. I don't think he unalived his wife. I think he hurt her to go to the hospital. Did he unalive her? I don't know. But it's those.
Was it the Dargers? Is that who you're thinking of?
Right,
no, not the
Dargers.
Dargers.
I know Kyle. Yeah, it was Kyle. Yeah.
Kyle? That sounds right.
Yeah. So I knew him and his wife personally. So, the woman that they're talking about, and
Hmm.
I don't know if I even want to touch that story with a 10-foot pole, but
No, you don't have to,
but yeah, I'm just
that would
there's
use
two
it
sides to
flood.
there's two sides to every story for sure, and
Yeah.
not that I would ever condone someone being abusive or even try to take away someone's traumatic experience or lessen it, but there's definitely two sides to every story.
Yeah.
And that's one of those that I would say definitely has two sides to it. So,
Yeah.
yeah. And then of course the Dargers, I know they were on there too. And a couple of my really good friends were on. I mean, my family's been on Sister Wives. So, yeah. Whenever they have one of their big parties, we watch it really slow and we pause it, and then we're like, "Oh, there's my brother. Oh, there's my yeah." So when they did their mission statement, I think I had three siblings in the audience, or at the party. So yeah, you'll see them. And then when Cody and Mary do flashbacks of their wedding, my parents are in that video too. So
They use the same flashbacks all the time. Like,
yeah,
the same video, the same pictures, the same. It's like, did they not have cameras?
I know. Well, I think it's just because it's safe, because they've already edited out whoever they can't be in it, and so those are the safe ones that are already there. So no, I've been really, like, this season has been great to watch, because I really have had I love watching these women be empowered. And I love watching them finally be able to speak truths that they have not been able to speak for years. Yep. And that's why everyone's like, this season is so boring. And I think this is one of the best seasons, because we're learning so much, and they're saying things that they've never been able to say.
Yes. Because they don't have to keep peace within the family anymore. They can tell it the way it is. So
right.
But also a big lesson on what exactly they went through to keep peace.
Yeah.
Right. And how hard, because I used to say that to my mom all the time. Mom, why are you, like, her kids have been begging her to leave my dad for 20 years. And she was like, you guys just don't understand. You don't, discount. You don't understand what's Mom. And so when I got into mortgages, I started doing real estate 25 years ago. That's when I realized, it was after I got divorced, and I didn't know anything about this. You're so uneducated financially. And so then that's when I started like, Mom, get your name on something. And I was discounted and ignored. And now it's like, we're starting to see the ramifications of that.
Yeah.
And these women are going to get screwed. There's just no way that they're not. And unless they spend tens of thousands of dollars in attorney fees.
I think their savior in this case is the fact that everything was recorded.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And we hope that is, hopefully you get a judge that understands real estate law.
Yeah.
Not
looking at this as a divorce, but looking as business partnerships.
Yep.
Right.
Because that's ultimately what it was, right?
Yep. Exactly.
Right. Right. And so, now here's my mom, 70 plus, and doesn't have anything in her name. Yeah. So it is. And so I feel like this season has been one of the most truthful seasons we've seen. Yeah. I mean, only the snippets that I've seen here and there, I'm just like, oh my gosh, that's not true. Like, we would watch and I'd be like, what the hell? What are they doing? Like, Mary, speak up. Mary, speak up. And I've come across Mary several times over the last few years. And one time her and I sat and talked for about 2 hours. And I was like, Mary, what are you guys doing? And we would talk about it. She's doing what she needed to do to keep the family together and happy. Yeah. So,
yeah. I mean, when you talk about loyalty, that's a huge amount of loyalty. Right. Mary left so long ago. Long ago. Right. She did believe in that family unit for some reason.
Well, that's the thing. You're sold a story your entire life about, this is how happy you're going to be when you have this type of a family. So you're always striving for that type of a family. You're always striving to make it, well, I'm not happy, so there's something wrong with me. What do I need to do to fix that? And so then you're always the problem that needs to be fixed. It's never somebody else, because we were sold these stories from the time we were born. And especially the women, you were sold these stories about how wonderful your sister-wife relationship was going to be. And it's not. It's never that way. And so I love seeing these women break away from that. I love seeing them find, and a lot of people will say stuff about Mary's Worthy Up program or whatever it is. I just love that she wants to help other people because of it. You've got Christine out there finding her own inner boss, and you've got Janelle out there finding her own inner peace and her creativity side of it. And then you've got Mary out there really showing like she is a very service oriented person, and she wants to be of service to other people. So I just love seeing these kind of massive characteristics coming out of these women now.
Yeah. And what really gets me about the Worthy Up is a lot of people will come in and make comments and be like, oh, this is just one of those pyramid scheme, this and that. Well, no, because she's not asking you to sell it. She's asking you to attend it. Very different. But I also get like what it is that people get out of things like that, because here I am making TikToks about what it is that I've been through, and people love to be a part of that because they're like, oh, shoot, I've been a part of that too. Like these things have happened to me, and I can get this out of this and this out of this. And that's exactly what she's doing for other people.
Right. And I love that. I love that for her. I haven't attended any of her classes or anything like that, but I love that she just wants to be of service to other people. And if she can make a living doing that, there's nothing wrong with that. Like I feel I'm excited for her, and she's got other women that have left the AUB. You saw that one episode a couple weeks ago where she had the two girls, and all three of them were having dinner or having lunch at a restaurant. Those are two ex-AUB girls. Yeah. And so you're seeing, I mean, just in the little bit that I've spoken up, I've had dozens of women reach out to me. Yeah. And because they're in these situations, and I'm like, oh shoot, I didn't even expect that, nor was I prepared for it. Like I can't stand here and advise these women to divorce their husbands. Like, what do I do? And so I'm trying to navigate through that right now too, so that I can still be supportive of other women. And then not overstep where I'm supposed to not over, you know what I mean? Because if they're going to just come to me, I'm going to be like, get out, divorce your husband, get out, but,
right. Yeah.
But is that the healthiest thing for them? You know what I mean? And so I got to not think about what I would do so I've been more of a listening ear for some people, but I've literally had dozens of people reach out to me that are still currently in polygamy. And I've had quite a few actually that aren't even in the AUB that have reached out to me. So, so it's been different. So I can only imagine the platform that Mary has, because I don't have I'm brand new. I just got started. Yeah. And so I can only imagine the people that reach out to Mary. So.
Yeah, quite a bit.
Yeah.
It's, I'm thinking back on where you say, how do you should get out of it and you should run. And when Mary had that catfishing situation, which I believe Robin had set up, by the way. But
I've heard that.
Yeah. When she had that situation and she was saying, well, this person was telling me I'm underappreciated and I need to leave the marriage and this and that. And I remember thinking at the time, well, yeah.
Yeah.
It's true. And that's all I could think. You need to get out of this. You need to get out of this. I mean, clearly you're unhappy. We saw you be unhappy. Then we saw you get into conversations with people online because you were seeking some sort of a validation. You got it and you followed it, not even knowing who it was. That tells me that you are so unhappy that you're going to follow anything to get out. So the catfish was right about one thing.
Right. Yeah. Right. Which we don't even know a lot of that story. So that's what I was telling Corey, like we need to go back and watch that season and find out more. We did watch some of the little clippets of the episodes here and there, but we didn't follow it all the way. Yeah. But I mean, that happens a lot. You would be surprised at how often that type of stuff in this religion happens.
Oh, I bet. Just looking for somebody to connect with. Yeah.
Right. Oh, and it's not even just the women that do it. It's a lot of the men too. Mm-hmm. They're unhappy. One person was talking about, I can't remember where you heard this, called, the lonely polygamist. And that's what Big Love was based on, was that article called The Lonely Polygamist. And it's true. Like, how do you create an intimate connection with somebody when you're hopping from one bed to the next every other night? Oh, I can't imagine that. It's like, oh shoot, I had this really exciting thing come up. I'll tell my husband in 4 days.
Yeah.
There's actually guys within the AUB that go to church and then get eye contact with young girls there at church and then watch them get hit by lightning. So
he's talking about Robin's lightning bolt.
Instead of look,
when the lightning hit you, it's so romantic.
Yeah.
So we were sitting at church, and I was looking at this married man that I wasn't supposed to be, but since I'm a diesel jeans model, I could do what I want. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I was so stunned by that story. Well, and then even Cody, like here they are trying to portray their romantic relationship, right? And then Cody's like, yeah, I probably met eyes with her for too long. She could have been married to someone else. And I'm like, but in the AUB, does that really matter? You know, everyone marries everyone else.
Yeah, you say, are you done with her? You don't, okay, cool. Yeah.
I know, literally, I've told this story before, but we were in the temple, my ex-husband and I. My dad was getting another wife, which was someone else's other wife, you know, from the AUB. And the prophet at the time says, they call us a bunch of wife swappers, but we're not wife swappers. And my ex-husband and I look around, and we're the only two people in that room that had only been married to each other. Everyone else there. And my grandma married the previous prophet. So my grandma's in there. And she was married to an ex-AUB member. And so it's just like, it's just, yeah, it's so ridiculous how much they divorce and remarry, and
yeah. So here's the question, because you're supposed to have eternal life with the family that you're with, right?
Right.
And then you divorce, and then you have eternal life with your new family.
Right.
Then the kids, which of the kids do you have eternal life with?
that's why Cody gave those kids a name and a blessing and sealed them up under him so they won't be with the ex-husband.
Yeah.
Okay.
So whoever's latest in the sealing up of the children unto the thing, then those kids are now forced to go, supposedly in their afterlife, be taken care of. It's interesting. I am not a part of the AUB. I mean, if you want to talk about, her ex-husband and her were married they've only been sealed for time and alternating. Now, yes, she did get a release, but I don't know. The two kids we've had together, are they going to be sealed to? It depends on who's teaching the teaching, but yeah, I'm sure her ex-husband thinks that in the afterlife he'll have her and all 5 of the children sealed up underneath of him, because I'm not sealed to any of them. So,
well, you'll be done with her by then anyway.
that will be
You'll be done with me by then. I'll be washed up old lady by then.
I'm only for time, so.
But he really did think that when he always thought there was a chance we were going to get back together. You know, we got divorced, or I never legally married him. I only spiritually married him in the AUB. Okay. And so when I actually went through the process of getting a release from the prophet. Mm-hmm. And when I did that, you know, he 100% believed when I got pregnant with our daughter that he tells me, don't worry, I'm going to take good care of her in the afterlife. And I'm like, you are high in the night if you think that this kid belongs to you in any way. But that's just how it is. They're so ego-driven. It's such an ego-driven society that they really, truly believe this BS that they spew. That, you know, I'm gonna be in control of you and your wife. Like, excuse me, first of all, no man is gonna be in control over me after I leave this planet. Like, no thank you. I'm my own person. And so, and my children are their own people. Yeah. Like, we don't need somebody to tell us we're
raising individuals who have their individual freedom to be whomever they want and go wherever they want. They're not going to be controlled by me. And I don't have priesthood. That was stripped of me. I'm not even a Gentile. I'm an apostate from it.
Way worse. Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Whatever they have written down in their books will be funny to see in the afterlife.
Yeah. So it just goes to show, like, the egotistical part of this religion, you know. And we were stunned when we watched that episode, because we only watched that 2 days ago.
Yeah, and I
oh wow.
Yeah. We were stunned when Cody did that.
36 years away from it, and I forget that they even do, but then I'm looking at like, oh my gosh, those guys he's taking charge of that family now, and growing up people were doing that all the time. So.
Well, and for him to put
They
that
were
on
calling
television.
him Daddy already as soon as she moved to Utah, and before they were even engaged. Is that what you call it? But yeah,
Right. Oh, it blew our minds. We were just, we watched that episode, I think on Friday. And both of us were like, he did not just give them a blessing and change their names like that. Like, that's just a big fat, I mean, of course that had to happen, but for him to, as part of the religion, that part had to happen.
They did it though, because they made it sound like they were doing that, number one, to protect the kids from Preston, who they said was a horrible human being. And then number two, they were like, because we want to be able to take care of the kids as our own in the family, making it sound like it was through paperwork or insurance or hospital or whatever. But none of that was true.
Yeah.
They lied to the audience about it, really.
Right. Right. And that's what I'm saying. That's why I think Robin had a long game, is because that was a long game on her end to get legal control over the family.
Yes.
Oh. And I mean, you would be so shocked at some of the stuff that the legal wives can do to the family. It's horrible to watch.
Oh, I could bet.
It's really bad. Like literally I'll just tell a quick story. My brother passed, right? And 2 weeks later was his birthday. And my sister took my mom to Disneyland to celebrate his birthday. While my mom was gone, my dad's legal wife went into her home and changed all of the locks on her home, so she could no longer have access to her home. Oh.
Wow.
Yep.
Because she's not in harmony anymore.
Yep. Because she's not in harmony with my dad anymore because she wanted to leave, right? And the reason my mom was allowed to stay in that home is because my brother was disabled. And so she was living there. And now, yep. So she went in there and changed all the locks on the door on the entire house. And my mom had someone coming in to sit her animals while she was gone. And that's how my mom found out, was somebody went to check on the animals and they couldn't get in.
Yeah.
And they call my mom and my mom's like, what? So they get on a FaceTime call and my mom's like, that's not even my door handle. And so, yeah, she literally changed all the locks. And her defense was, well, I was just doing what my husband told me to do. And his defense was, that's not what I told her to do. I told her to get me a key to your mom's house, so I have a key to your mom's house. And then it turned into the locksmith misunderstood and changed the locks when all he was supposed to do was get a master key. And yeah, right. And so these legal wives really can wreak havoc on these people, on these families.
Yeah. And
I mean, it was just horrible the way that this whole thing. And then if you bring this up at all, it's like, don't talk about that. That was so blown out of proportion. It was a misunderstanding that was blown out of proportion. So when you see these things,
this about you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's been said a dozen times since this happened. And so it's just, that's what I'm saying on Sister Wives. It's not all real, because something's going to happen and then they never talk about it again, and it's like, that's why they don't talk about it, is because it was so egregious that it's like, now we can't talk about that anymore. We're just gonna pretend that didn't happen.
Yeah.
And when dang well half the family's reeling and spinning off of what just happened, but we're never gonna talk about it again.
Yeah. Well, it's just like that just made me think of what Mary brought up on a live the other day in regards to the paintings that she was looking at.
Yeah.
And when I heard that, I was like, oh, this is how bad it really was. And then here she is on her time with Cody, trying to have her moment with Cody, and his thought is always Robin, Robin, Robin. And it makes you think back on all these times on the show where here he is, he's spending time with Mary, but he's on FaceTime with Robin. He was over at Christine's house, but the phone rang. It was Robin. He was, there was no equal balance there whatsoever.
Yeah. After my dad married his Robin, literally, she would call our home 50 times a night when my dad was there. And finally one night, like, I'm stuck in the middle and I'm trying to answer the phone. And then I'm like knocking on my parents' door and I'm like, Dad, the phone. And he finally is like screaming at me. And he's like, you tell her I'll call her back. And then I go tell her, Dad said he'll call you back. Because of course the phone's attached to the wall, right? I can't go anywhere. And so then I'm like, she screams at me, "You better listen, young lady. You go get your dad right now." And then it got to the point where we had to unplug the phone because that's how bad it was back then. And so these women get these like power trips where they feel like they need to be in control of everything. And even before her, it was the first wife that was the favorite. And from a child's perspective, we would say, "Dad, can we have that at our house?" He's like, "Oh no, you can just go to Aunt so-and-so's house and use it." And so as kids, my dad always had a trampoline, but never at our house. It was always at her house. And if we wanted to play on it, then we could go over to her house. Well, my mom and her are not friends. We're not going over there to jump on the trampoline, right? The only time we go over there is on Sundays for Sunday school, because we did family home Sunday schools, just like what you see in the Browns. Yeah. And then my sister broke her leg on Sunday. And so then we're never allowed to jump on the trampoline on Sundays, because obviously God was punishing us for jumping on the trampoline, which is why she got her leg broken. Yeah. So I'm like, well, thanks for ruining that tramp for us. So it's not just the wives that they do this to, it's the kids. It passed down to the kids. We were not allowed to have gaming systems or VCRs, or anything like that. That all went to the other wife's house. And then we could go over there and use that. And this is where Corey was lucky.
Because we all lived in one house, so...
so you have how many people in one house?
9 wives.
9 wives and 39 children lived in one huge 6,000 square foot home.
I think it's bigger than that.
We shared.
So was it one of those that they added so they would bring on more family members and add a room and add a room and add a room?
Yeah, he built this to be able to house. When he built it, to house the family that he had. I think he had 5 wives at that time. But then as new wives came in, we were doubled up in bedrooms. I had at one point, I never had a bedroom by myself. At one point it was just me and my little brother just under me. And then there were 3 of us in a room. And so my mom had 6 boys, and she had her bedroom and 2 other bedrooms, so 3 and 3.
So she was issued 3 bedrooms out of that house.
Yeah.
So, wow.
And then they eventually did build the cabin next door, and then they had
the cabin was there originally.
Oh, and so then they had a cabin.
Yeah, he did have 2 wives over in a cabin next door because his family grew so big.
Yeah.
So
he had 2 wives living in one cabin together.
Yeah.
2 wives and
I bet
all
that
the kids. Oh yeah. It was awesome.
No, and there's some stories that are like women pulling guns on each other. Like that's how bad.
I mean, this is in the hills, so
yeah. So it was, and we're actually going to start talking about that. We're going to start filming, we've started filming some podcasts where we're talking about our own stories, and we're like, do we talk about the women pulling guns on each other? Like, do we go into that? Do you think people will receive that very well? We're like, we don't know. So, yeah.
My dad's first.
It is realistic that people will get that angry at each other when put into situations.
Oh, and I guarantee you that this happened with some of the sister wives on the show. They just don't film that. They don't see that part of it. And so maybe not to this extreme, but I mean, there's stories about wives throwing other wives' clothes, dressers, everything out onto the front lawn.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what did Janelle made a comment about Mary about slamming the doors? Mm-hmm. It was a underhanded kind of a comment, and I was like, "There's no way it was just slamming doors."
No.
There's no way. Thank you.
No, there's that. You what?
Oh, I said thank you to somebody here in between that.
Oh no, kids.
My little sister's on.
His little sister's on. She's like, what about dumping dirt into the breakfast? Like,
yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things that happen. I mean, we didn't all live together, but I mean, even though we didn't live together, those wives still got their points across.
I could imagine, especially being super young, thinking about, when you had those friendships or anything like that, when you would fight, you'd be like, because you haven't built that ability to relate with one another yet. And Janelle, Christine, and Mary were living in a trailer together. So, yeah, they were going to fight. Yeah.
Right. That's how Corey's mom's, that's when Corey lived by Robin. Did you live next door to each other or down the street from each other?
It's like 3 trailers down. But
Yeah.
My dad, when he first moved up to Pinesdale, they had a 2-bedroom trailer that he had 3 wives and 8 kids living in while they built the big house. And that was for about a year. It took about a year to build that big house, but he had 3 wives and 8 kids living in a little tiny trailer.
Worst year ever.
I know. Like,
was-
how do you get pregnant under those circumstances?
They figured it out. So.
I know. I know. Somebody says, do
There
women
was a
get
pause.
physical with each other ever? Yeah. There's a lot of, like, I have heard some stories where I'm blown away about the women do get very physical with each other. I've heard stories of, one wife breaking in on another wife and her husband in an intimate situation and tearing one wife. Like, it gets bad. And so, but you're never going to see any of that on television. And not every family is that way. So we should reference that not every family is that way.
Not every wife.
Not every
Some
woman.
of them just didn't get along with each other.
Yeah, and some
ever.
of them are just catty. They just do catty little things to each other. And then some of them are very physical. So, yeah, I think it's just, and that's why I think most of the people that we know don't watch the show, because they're like, this is so unrealistic. This is not how it goes. People don't do these things. So
It didn't show the fights between them. And then there's, some things that the kids have said that you're like, well, do you mean this by it or do you mean that by it? Because it never was caught on camera, so you don't know exactly what they're talking about. So,
Right.
But also I could understand that in those tense relationships where I'm describing this constant feeling, right, of feeling like that you're going to have to get it out at some point, and that's not going to be healthy. That is
well, and
not.
a lot of times the women would take it out on each other's children.
Yeah.
And that's where it gets really, that's another reason why we say children are collateral damage in this religion, is because I was abused so significantly by so many of my other mothers. And it really does happen a lot more than people want to realize that it does. But then you'll get those women who are very kind and loving, and they love all the children equally. My mom was that mom. She was very much, all the children referred to her as mom. All the children felt comfortable and safe with her. Where, there's another mother that nobody would ever talk to because she was aggressive and abusive and mean and physically abusive. I literally don't remember a time ever my dad coming home that I wasn't beat. So I literally don't remember one time in my childhood. And so it's just a very physically aggressive society in that regard too, in my experience. Not everyone has that experience, but in my experience it was.
Yeah.
So yeah. Sister Wives really leaves a lot behind the scenes that you just don't see. So now these kids are getting older, and I've heard that a lot of them have they're out there trying to talk and tell their own stories. And I'm sure, they weren't raised, because they left Utah, they were not totally engulfed in the AUB experience as teenagers, but a lot of them were as small children for sure. But then the younger children just never really fully had that AUB experience. I tell that to my siblings all the time. I'm the oldest of 11. My mom had 11. I'm the oldest. And I'm like, you have no idea what we did for you. We got mom to quit going to church, and you were raised by totally different parents than I was.
Yeah.
So,
My younger siblings were raised by completely different parents. So my mom had 6 boys. I don't know how she did it. And then she got her little girl, and my little sister's has a totally different mom than what us boys had. So.
right.
Oh, of
Right.
course. Of course. Yeah. When you're in those circumstance, that your personality completely changes. Completely changes. Just like you said, seeing with all of these women, the personality changing.
Yeah.
Except for, do you see Robin's personality changing?
Corey has a lot of really strong feelings about Robin, where I try to give her a little bit more grace. Where Corey's just like, and I said to him off camera, why do you hate her so bad?
No, just my I should clarify. I grew up with her mom.
Yeah.
I'm a lot older than Robin, and so I grew up with her mom, and my frustration is my best friend was the first wife's child, and I did not like.
So he got all the stories from.
Well, not only stories, I lived it. I'd go down and hang out with them. I did not like her mom at all, and she's a duplicate of her mother.
Okay.
So my disdain is not
that's
necessarily.
where she learned her tricks from.
Yeah. My disdain is not necessarily to Robin, although if she's doing exactly what her mother did to the other family, then I see what
Robin's mom then, she did that family stay connected? I don't remember. They did.
Well, they were next door neighbors apparently. Her and then her new sister wife. Mm-hmm. They were so Robin's stepdad Paul and his wife, they were neighbors with them when she was married to Robin's bio dad.
Right.
And then he got a second wife.
She got a release.
Yeah.
She married Paul, and that's
because they were good friends, and then apparently they weren't after that. I don't know. No, I don't know much about it.
Well, that does change a friendship.
Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. Your friends start sleeping with your husband, it's gonna do something. So yeah. So they did that, and then they moved out of Pinesdale when you were 16 or something like that.
Something around there.
Yeah.
Her mom doesn't like me either. So.
Which is funny because I had never met her mom, right? And we're at this class, and a bunch of AUB members are at this class, and I'm there with my mom and my sister and Corey and a couple of us there. Well, Robin's mom is sitting behind us, and she like introduces herself to us because she knows who my dad is, and he's in a big deal. And so she's trying to introduce herself to us, and then she introduces herself to us as Robin's mom, but she won't even look at Corey. She won't even talk to Corey. She won't have anything to do with Corey. I didn't know any of this connection.
I wasn't looking at her either, so we don't like each other at all.
I didn't know any of this connection.
I wasn't looking at her either, so we don't like each other at all.
And it wasn't until afterwards that I was like, what was that? That was weird. And I'd never met her, and she was there with two of her kids, and it was just an interesting exchange. And then Corey's like, well, this is why she doesn't like me. Because Corey was best friends with the other wife's kid. Yep. And so, so it's just, there's so many connections. Like it's so hard. We call it polygonometry because it's just so hard. It's just so hard to even say who's who and what's what, so.
Did you guys do a DNA test before you got married?
No. That is one thing I've said this before because that is so true. Both of my parents converted in, and then both of my ex-husband's parents converted in, and then both of Corey's parents converted in. So we have no relation other than through marriages.
I should do a DNA, but my mother has genealogy, the genealogy of where we all came from.
Yeah, so no, we really don't have any relation. But my kids, unbeknownst to me for the longest time, were really worried about dating anyone. Mm-hmm. Like my little sister doesn't want to date anyone except for black guys because she knows that they won't be related. And so she will... Well, but that's probably true. She thinks that in her mind. So she really will not date anyone else but that because she doesn't want to worry about whether she's related. And so it's really kind of tricky. But my kids would come home from high school. They went to a small little charter school. And like the Dargers I didn't know that 1 million polygamous people were sending their kids there. I'd heard about it through the Mormon church. Yeah. And so, so my kids come home and they're like, can we date this person? Are we related? I'm like, oh my gosh, no, you're not related to anybody, but I appreciate you asking me. So, yeah. And that seems like a silly little thing for a teenager to worry about, but we went there. Well, here's what's so funny is we went to orientation and my son was there was only 4 kids that graduated. My son was the first class to start 9th grade, go all the way through and graduate. People were such jerks to me. All the polygamous people were such jerks to me. Well, then the next night, my dad comes to the orientation because my little brother is the same age as my son. Right? I have 3 kids the same age as my mom's bottom 3 kids. My 3 older are the same age as my mom's 3 bottom. And everyone's all of a sudden so nice to me. Everyone's like, oh, hi, Brother Dave. How are you doing? Oh, hi, Melanie and Corey. We're both like, last night you didn't have anything to do with us, and now tonight we're all best friends.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It's just the way that it is. It's just, yeah, you're related to everyone. So, but that's how my kids all got be friends with the Dargers. So, yeah, our kids, Joe Darger, the one that you see on Sister Wives a lot, our kids are really good friends. So,
yeah, we in LDS it is a lot of people related, and so when I was talking to Mary one night, and I was like, if we run my DNA back, we might actually realize that we're second cousins. Just like, what? And I'm like, well, my ancestors were the ones who came over from Missouri, made that trek. And I'm like, so I could technically be related to every member of
it's very true.
Yeah.
That is very true. Yeah. I think we are all related eventually. Oh,
yeah.
Well,
I had a ex-girlfriend in small town Washington who brought a gal home that she was dating and had been dating for a minute, and brought her home to meet her mom. And her mom was like, you guys can't date. You're cousins.
What?
Oh, I guess this is over. So it happens
wow.
everywhere.
Well, and we actually do have quite a few situations like that where they're not blood related at all. They're just marriage related first cousins.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And that happens a lot in the AUB.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, a ton.
I mean, how can it not? Like,
right.
This was in Wenatchee, Washington. Somebody asked me where.
Oh, okay.
Wenatchee.
Yeah. Yeah, it's surprising to me how often and common that is. But no, Corey, I mean, I guess we could do
Yeah, it could be.
some level of, but we are related to a stupid amount. I mean, my grandma, the last we checked, I had 350 cousins. There's 350 of us. And then like 180 great grandchildren.
That's too much.
Yeah.
Why are they saying that we need to make more people? You guys are doing just fine in your family.
Right. Right. Yeah. There's a stupid amount of us. And then because my grandma had 11 children and they've all lived polygamy.
Yeah.
And so, my dad's the oldest, and then he's had 8 wives. And then of course, what are you smirking at?
Just in in AUB, it's frowned upon to marry your first cousin. Second cousins is okay. First cousin only if it's in a royal family can you marry your first cousin.
True.
Oh, okay.
True story.
That's why they let us in, so that there'd be kind of some fresh blood into the AUB.
That is why Cody was so wanted.
That's why Cody was so. But Cody was also second cousins with who? Was it Janelle or Christine?
I don't know. I've heard that too, though. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know who he was related to, but people are like, Christine is related to Preston and she doesn't know anything about him. And I was like,
Cody's related to Preston.
Oh, Cody is too?
Cody is too. That's it. They all,
okay.
Yeah. Okay. So she says that she doesn't know him, but.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I try to explain to people, okay, well, I have 350 cousins myself. And Cody and Christine and Preston are not, like, there's an age gap there, like 10-year age gap. And he lived in Montana and she lived down here. So if she knew him, she knew of him, but she probably didn't know him, you know. I have dozens of cousins, and what's funny is the physical traits are so prominent when you get such small family tree branches. And so I'll be able to look at somebody and go, oh, that's probably your parents. That's probably your parents. But when you have that happen, it's like, you know, you're going to be related to somebody eventually. So.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Well, and people will say, who's this person? And they'll give us a name. I'm like, I don't know. That family has 15 of those people with the same freaking name.
I know. Why can't you? I swear the Duggar family, 25 kids and counting, I think they started to think of recycling names at some point. They're like, I can't think of anything else.
Yeah, it's hard because no, and with our family, thank goodness we don't have a ton of people with. But even in my ex-husband's family, somebody, because I got divorced and my kids were never around them, went and named their kid the same name as my oldest. And it's not a very big family because they married in, so there's not a ton of them. I'm like, really? You couldn't have thought of any other name, but I named him Adam, and Adam is a very, very
Yeah,
common name.
well, I get that it's common, but there's so many. What about Joseph?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's just it's so when we're trying to place somebody, like we were just watching a podcast the other day with a Josh Thompson. We're like, how many there's probably 20 of those. Can you tell me a little bit more? Like, who are his parents? So
Yeah.
Yeah, my mom would take us as young kids and as young adults to family reunions down here so we could see her side of the family. And I never saw Melanie there, so I assumed it was safe to marry her.
Yeah.
Well, but Maddie met her husband at a family reunion.
I know, I heard they were related some sort, but I mean, I don't follow up on a lot of that.
It's by marriage. It's
Okay.
Yeah.
Cody's mom married his dad or something. I don't remember what it
Okay.
was. Yeah.
Okay, so they're not
They're
blood
cousins
related.
by marriage, yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. And I mean, it's just going to happen. Fortunately, none of my kids have married anyone even remotely close. Like, my girl went out to Florida and met her husband out there. He was a pilot. My son, and then my son married, she went out there for college, and her roommate, she ended up bringing her home, and that's how my son met her. And then my son's married to her now. So, so yeah, none of our kids have married anyone even remotely close either, which has been kind of nice. But for us,
All Gentiles.
for us, it was awesome because, we obviously met because my best friend was married to his brother. And that's kind of how we got introduced a little bit more. We grew up in the AUB and never knew each other. I didn't meet Corey until I was 22. Mm-hmm. And so, even though he was at my wedding, he was just I had 450 people at my wedding. And so he came with somebody there. And so it's not like it was, you know what I mean? He was just there. And so I didn't invite him, but I didn't mean that so
You didn't.
aggressively.
Her husband invited his sister, and I was dating her at the time. So,
Oh,
so
okay.
I drove her down.
So it
dropped
was
her
a
off at the
Janelle Cody situation.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
And then
He didn't date her for long, but
I
he did
didn't.
date her.
she asked me to drive her down. I drove her down here. She went into the wedding. I went in there. She met her future husband, and I turned around and drove back up to Montana. So
That's
it was
funny.
a good weekend to get away. So
All
I
right.
signed her book. So
Yeah. Just so he was at my wedding, but yeah. So it's just kind of how it goes. I know we need more clarity background on those kind of stories. Those are long stories. This is what we're recording in a podcast right now, is these kind of things, so that we can go into deeper explanation of things.
So listen to my podcast, you'll know more. Yeah.
What's funny to me is when you don't have to change your last name. That's that happens a lot.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we're related somehow, but we don't know how, and I don't need to change my name from Jessup to Jessup or Allred to Allred. I'm just going to go ahead and keep the same last name.
Right. The Jessup thing was there's so many Jessups out there that aren't even related, but they got the name from people who are related. That's just,
Well, and that's the biggest family from FLDS and AUB, because when they split, it literally split families in half.
Yeah.
And so half of the Jessup family went into the FLDS, the other half of the Jessup family stayed in AUB. So that's the biggest family, I think, that's out there. But then you do have the Allreds, you do have the Thompsons, you do have there's a couple of really big, you have the Laverys, you've got a bunch of really big families. So but they just split right down the middle when the FLDS went their way and AUB went their way. So So yeah, you'll see here. Corey's getting lost in the comments. Corey loves reading the comments.
Yeah.
Well, my sister's on here, and she's asking me tons of questions and putting in her 2 cents worth. So it's fun to read what she's saying.
Oh, of course. Do you think that the AUB is going to be able to continue, or is it going to be a dying religion?
They always have some children that stay in and promote it, and some that do not want to risk fire and damnation. So, I mean, 3 of the 39 stayed in from my family, and they've had 13, 14 kids. Yeah. So there's always going to be some doing it. They've been maintaining about 10,000 people is what her dad says. So, so they have a lot of people fall away, a lot of people go, but the next generation brings in 2 or 3 kids from certain families that then have tons of children also.
Yeah. So you're going to, I mean, I don't think they'll die out. Too many people are afraid. Like you said, they're afraid of hell and damnation. And so I just don't think it'll die out completely. I mean, their numbers have dwindled at times, for sure. And especially whenever there's a transition from one prophet to the next.
Oh, yeah.
They lose half of their group. Half of the group splits.
Yeah.
So. I feel like it's with the prophet, it feels like the presidency, right? Where so many things go in and change. Yeah. You now just do whatever you want, which is weird to me because a religion and a belief system should be based on the book, the written, right? Not coming in and just saying, okay, now we're doing this.
Right. Well, and that's what I say that on almost every single video that we do. The AUB makes up the rules as they go along, and everything changes. It depends on who you are. It depends on your last name. Like I say that all the time because it's so true. Yeah. I mean, everything changes from the prophet that was the prophet my whole life to the next prophet. There was massive changes. And people, that next prophet was like demanding that people, certain things that you're just like, what? It felt very, super authoritarian.
FLDS.
Yeah. And he was like, if you're not having children, you absolutely are not to have sex. Period. End of story. Like he put in massive, serious rules. And then the next prophet was accused of pedophilia, and he was the reason I left the AUB was because he was checking out my daughter at 2. And so I looked at him, I watched him watching her going, I can't do this to her. I will never, I can't raise her this way. I can't make her go through the things that I went through. Mm-hmm. And then from that transition, now you've got my dad. Mm-hmm. And my dad's just like, yeah, it's none of our business. Do whatever you do whatever you want. Like you have sex whenever you want to. That's none of our business. But there's still rules and guidelines you have to follow, like, certain guidelines around that. And so my dad's a lot more, govern yourself. We don't need to govern every decision for you. So yeah,
that's just super creepy.
That
reminds me of when I was in the military and we had, an article, which I had broken just by being me. But in the same article was what men and women could do descriptively. And it was like, how do you police that?
Yeah, right?
Who's looking in the windows?
Right. Yeah. A lot of it they think is just self-government, you're going to come in and it's when you go in to get your temple recommend renewed. And then they're asking you the questions. Hey, are you living all of the rules and all the commandments and all the whatever that the prophet has set out? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? And so that's a lot of the times that's when they find out that something's been happening or not happening.
So do you think that Robin and Cody kept to that before their marriage? Oh, look at your face right here. You're like, no.
I 100% thought they did. We disagreed. I was like, absolutely not. There's no way that they didn't keep Chase before they were married, because he's got 3 other wives. But I know. But the more stuff that comes out, the more I'm like, I am wrong. I 100% don't believe they did. I 100% believe that something more happened than what they'll honestly say to the public. So
I didn't believe it for a heart. So I don't think you've seen the episode, or maybe you have, where it was the first time that they were showing him showing up at Robin's house after not seeing her for a couple of days, and he drove all those hours to be with her. Watch how he walks in and greets her.
okay.
That's a big indicator of what your physical activity and your knowledge of somebody's physical situation is.
Well, and I just always believe that people are going to do all, like, and that's the problem. I feel like some people go in there believing everyone's honest and upboard and saying what they're, and being truthful about things. And then he admitted that Tryst in college, and I was like, shit.
I'm an apostate, so I corrupted her over to the dark side of belief.
No, I definitely, and that has happened a lot. It really has in the polygamist group. And here's what causes the division too, is that in my own family, he married the first wife. He had sex with the second wife before he married her. Well, now he goes to get the third wife, and the second wife's over here going, I know what you did with me when you were already married. What are you doing with her? And then the fourth wife comes along. Now the fourth wife comes along, and the second wife goes straight to the leadership and is like, we had premarital sex. It destroyed that whole family. And so then he ended up leaving with the fourth wife and left all the first 3 wives. This happened in my own family. Yeah. And so he ends up leaving with the fourth wife, and because she was like, I know what you did with me, so you're obviously doing that with these other wives too. Yeah. But then also in the AUB, it depends on who you are. Now, if that would have happened to somebody like a higher up Jessup or something like that, then it's like, oh, brush that under the rug. Let's not talk about that ever again. He's repented. He said he was sorry. He's doing better now. Let's just never talk about that.
Or that if we don't say anything, if we don't tell anybody or the other wives, then it never happened.
Yeah.
And it isn't till there's a split or then the truth comes out. He was able to talk to Mary and Robin about something that he did, his tryst in college, and be honest with them, if you will. But he's not going to tell the other 2 wives. They had no clue about that. And if they didn't know about it, then he's up on the level with them. Oh, you guys, we didn't have sex. We don't do that type of thing.
Yeah.
And so he's able to tell. So if he told Robin, he told her for a reason. If he told Christine, he told her for a reason. You know what I mean? No, Mary, he told her for a reason. So, yeah, the other 2, there's no need to tell them. He doesn't want them to look bad up. He's up on this pedestal as a priesthood holder and keeping his word to them.
Well,
so.
Christine never even kissed somebody until she kissed Cody over the altar when they got married.
Yeah.
And so
she's following a certain set of rules that was laid down to her so that she could get into heaven. So he didn't. So. And
I think Cody brought that out publicly twofold. One was, the biggest one is to take a stab at Christine and Janelle. Like, because he was like, no, look how intimate of a relationship I have with Mary and then Robin. But I couldn't have that with you 2 because you 2 suck, for whatever reason. And then second of all, I think he brought it out to just for the drama of the storyline. I think that he does a lot of that kind of stuff to try to get the shock and awe so that people are still interested in the show. And so I think he did it for both of those reasons. And we were stunned when we heard that. We were like, no way did he just say that. Like,
and I
well,
think,
and now he's making it sound like he didn't say that on the previews that are coming up. But,
well, they do rewrite history a lot in that show. So, yeah. But no, I definitely think it's crazy. I think it's hilarious that Christine said that on one of these previews. Well, how close did Robin and Cody get before they got married? Because now she's probably questioning that too. Yeah. And rightfully so.
Oh yeah, and that picture actually broke. And which I didn't understand when they showed those engagement pictures to begin with, because the position of their bodies when they were taking those pictures broke the agreement that he had made specifically with Christine.
Yep.
Period.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
My mom had never seen those pictures, and then this whole thing, he hadn't either. And this whole thing came out about the trysts and stuff, and so we Googled them, and my mom's like, "Oh, absolutely not." You know, my mom was furious when she saw those pictures, and even Corey was just like, "What the hell?"
Yeah.
Those were it wasn't what the hell, it was just like, see? And
See,
like,
you're
right.
wrong, Mel. They absolutely had premarital. I'm like, I know.
Didn't say that. I just said...
I was trying to give them the benefit. I was trying to be like, you know, I want to see the best in people, and so I want to believe that that's what. If they say they're honest, I want to believe that they're honest. But yeah,
which is totally fine, but it's
to lie about it is a different thing. And
to lie
relationship
and to not give the other wives a choice. There's so.
Yeah, those
he
women
was cheating. He's a cheater. So
yeah.
Oh, he is. Yeah, because if he did that with Robin, what did he do with the young gal that they were courting?
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
Yeah.
No,
and then the comment that she made when he was getting rid of the convertible, and she was like, "The memories we made in that car," and I'm like, "Ugh."
Yeah. There's so much there. It's like, what are you people? You realize you're being recorded, right? You realize that people can see this, right? And that is where a lot of that is, my dad, I talked to my dad about it for years, because Robin went to counseling with him for years. And I would, I'd say to him, he would come in and he'd just be like, "I don't know. I keep telling these guys not to be on TV, but they keep doing it anyway." So, you can only tell somebody they're damaging themselves so many times before they have to see it themselves. So,
yeah.
And now you can really see, it's coming back to bite these.
Fun. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you're trying to be honest and integral and be a part of the family in an honest way, then you tend to get bit the hardest. Like Christine and Janelle have gotten bit the hardest.
Yep.
So, and I'm glad to see Mary finally break away from that. I'm glad to see her finally start talking out about it. But like even my mom, for 20 years, we're telling my mom, and she doesn't want to see anything. And now she's at the point where she'll say something. I'll be like, "Didn't I say that to you 20 years ago?" And she's like, "I know." And it's so hard not to live in "I told you so." But I don't want to do that to my mom either, because I still want her to find her own way. But it's hard not to be like, "I said that to you." So.
And I don't want to judge Cody and Robin. I had premarital sex, so
you did?
but I at least was honest with you before we got married. And
well, I mean, he was 28 when you got married. What do you think he did all those years?
So yeah, there you go. So, but I was honest. I wanted an honest connection with her to tell, so that we had a good relationship. And again, it's just me. My belief systems are weird as a apostate, but polygamy itself is cheating. The way that it happens, it's still cheating. They're always in a form of cheating to win that other wife into the family.
Right.
So.
Right.
And so.
Somebody had asked, do you think that we'll ever hear from Preston?
No.
I don't think so.
No, I don't think he wants anything to do with them. So he's just going to create a relationship with his family. It's one of those, I don't know. She's somebody else's problem. I don't want to talk about it. Let Cody deal with that. I'm just going to work on relationships with my kids. So nope, doesn't even want to. Yeah. It's a bad memory.
I think that's a healthy approach, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It is.
Yeah.
Right. And I've seen, I don't, we just I knew him as a teenager, just of him, because I'm older than him too. But I know some of his older brothers very well. We were really good friends growing up. And honestly, that family is a great family. I've really enjoyed my relationships with his older siblings. But they're also like, the internet world is a totally different world than where they live, you know?
Yeah.
And so there's no point in immersing himself into that.
Yeah.
He,
Yeah.
and especially, and I've seen the pictures of him and his family now, and they seem happy, and they,
Oh, yeah.
he seems like a wonderful dad, and his wife adores him, and he's got, I think, 5 or 6 more kids with her, and they, all the kids seem to adore him. And so why taint any of that with internet hate,
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
no point in that. So
I think also the fact that you say that the little that we have seen of pictures of him and his family and all that makes us kind of not really believe the narrative about him, because
Yeah.
it does. And although looks can be deceiving, right? We all know that. But yeah, I just
yeah,
yeah.
no, I think she did him very, very dirty,
Yeah.
though, and she did it on a very public stage, which is even more unfortunate.
Yeah. Without him having permission or buy-in for all of that, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And they have to come up with storylines here and there too. And so you're just seeing some of it just be grossly, over dramatized for TV.
Yeah.
Things that would never have been an issue outside of whether they had a television show or not. Like some of the things that I've seen, I'm like, why is that even an issue? Like, why are they even talking about this?
I know. I think it's so funny with some of them. It's like, so we went and did laundry one day and we folded the socks this way. Mary likes to fold her socks this way. Oh, isn't that silly? I'm like, but this is what we're doing today.
Yeah. Well, and that is a big issue for people who live in the same home. And so, because so many women, they want their dishes done one way. And this is literally something we are taught when we were little. It's like, it doesn't matter if your sister wife doesn't want the dishes done like this. You're going to do them like that. Like, you just let her do her thing. You do your thing. Maybe if you guys can. And so that's why they talk about it, is because it is something that we were taught and trained from very small, and we've said this before, on some of our lives, that Cody and Mary, when they got married, went and spent some time on their honeymoon at Corey's parents' home, because Cody had not been around that, and he wanted to see what it was like to have all the women in one home, because that's what he wanted. And so you kind of learn, and so
my little sister talks about it.
Yeah.
Because she was there.
She
when
was
they
still
came.
there.
I was gone by then. So
Yeah. And so, of course, when they show up, they're not cameramen, but, they're other people. And so the wives put away all the weapons, and they put away all the dirt that they're throwing in each other's breakfast. And they put all that stuff away, and they are on their best behavior for the few days that everybody's there.
But sell it to get more people, right?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
everybody except for my dad's first wife. She was awesome. So she didn't put on a good show for anybody. So
But this feels like if with Janelle, because Janelle was not raised in that, so she wasn't taught that. So that explains a lot when you put it that way, because one of the things that Cody would keep coming back to was kitchen etiquette, right? Over and over. Well, so you were taught you were supposed to just do your thing and shut up about it. Janelle wasn't taught that.
Right. Right.
So this is where they probably were colliding, was Janelle's like, well, I like to do it this way. And Mary's like, yeah, we don't talk about that here.
Right.
Don't do that here. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And so Nat, of course, and then Mary comes off as over aggressive. And,
Yeah.
and, you know, and Janelle is a little bit more, you know, oh, shoot, I thought we did it that way. Okay, I guess we don't. And then she backs up and doesn't say anything. And then
Right.
Mary comes off as the more aggressive person,
Exactly.
when she might not be. She might just be like, hey, this is how I was running my kitchen before you came in and started, you know. And I'm in the polygamist community. The kitchen is like the identity of the woman. And I hate to say that because it feels so gross when I say it, but it's true. And so then, you know, what comes out of that kitchen, the meals that you prepare for your family, all these other, you know, it's your main staple of identity other than your children. And so when someone comes in and starts messing with that, you know, it's like, well, wait a minute. I didn't do the dishes like that, and now my kitchen's not clean. That's a direct reflection on me.
Yeah.
And when it has really nothing to do with you, it's just, other than your children, your kitchen is your next biggest identity. So yeah, and it's sad. Corey
I have no clue how my parents did that.
Yeah.
So we had 7 women that ran one kitchen. So
right.
One wife would have a cook week for a cook week, then the next wife would have a cook week, and then one wife would do the cook week, the other wife would do the dishes and clean up, and that way, and it all rotated. So it was insane.
Yeah.
So,
that's great. Did you have a big, giant kitchen, like a cafe style?
an industrial kitchen, and then a huge dining room that, it was like school lunches, I guess. Everybody would just grab some food out of the main kitchen, and then you'd go in and sit down and eat your food on the run. So, and a lot of times eating in shifts too, because we had so many people. Half the family would come in and eat, and then the next family would come in and eat. The rest of them would come in and eat. So
Wow,
it was insane.
It's funny. One of my friends, she calls me one time, and I'm like, I called to check on her, and she's crying, and I'm like, what are you doing? And she's like, I'm in labor, and I'm like, okay, so what are you doing? And she was like, I'm doing the dishes because it's my cook week. Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay, but you're in labor. She's like, it doesn't matter. It's my cook week. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay, let me come over and get your children. So I drove over to her home and picked up 4 of her children and brought them back to my house, and then, helped her finish cleaning up because it was her cook week. And so it didn't matter if she was in labor. She was in soft labor, but she was and then she ended up having her baby the next day. She's in labor. Right. And I'm like, where's your sister wife? Like, where is she at? And she's like, oh, she went, I don't know where she went. She wasn't there, but the husband certainly wasn't going to come in and help her do those dishes either. And so she's literally standing in front of the sink crying because of this. And so I go, and that's just how a lot, and so you're not going to see any of that stuff on Sister Wives. You're not going to see any of that kind of stuff portrayed, but that is the reality of what happens. It's like, too bad, perform your duties and your responsibilities, because this is what you agreed to. So figure it out.
Yeah, somebody said, what? Isn't that the value that they were trying to teach? Well, if I was doing something, then the other sister wives would come in and help, and that's really happened.
They on Sister Wife, they absolutely sold that as one of the benefits. Now, Christine and Janelle, yes,
right,
absolutely worked together, and I think Mary, before Robin came in too, was all a part of that, because as they would explain, Mary would do the gross details, right, cleaning up the wounds and things like that. But Robin, nope, never once was a part of that. She said she wanted them. But then when you would be like, okay, so now I get to take your kids, right? Mm-hmm. No.
I don't trust you with my children.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep. And so that again, I go back to what she was sheltering her children from, the bad examples that some of the other kids were. Or what Robin believed.
This wasn't the family for her.
Right. And so, it is. It's so frustrating when you watch one wife's kids be treated so completely differently than the other wife's children.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Sure.
And Robin can't foster those relationships with those children unless she is part of that nitty gritty. Unless she is a part, and her kids are part of that nitty gritty stuff. What's the word that I'm thinking of? Like the unfancy stuff, the day-to-day grind. And Robin didn't want to be a part of the day-to-day grind. And and she didn't want her kids to be a part of that day-to-day grind. Right. And, so it's sad because her kids really didn't get to be a part, even though I felt like in everything I've seen, all the kids have been super welcoming to her and her children.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
I've never seen anything to the contrary other than just like regular sibling fights, but that happens all the time, So
Well, and she went and made a big complaint about it and was like, I think it was Peyton that did something. Uh, and one of Robin's kids was like, he said this to me, he said this to me, he's being so mean to me. And Robin's like, oh, we need to get them away because they're being all mean to them and picking on them. And they're like, do you know what having siblings is like? Because that's normal. What are you talking about?
Right. Right. And I mean, Corey experienced that in his family. I experienced that in mine too. And these are with like biological siblings that you're born, you know, at least the same dad, not the same mom. But yeah, it's really hard when you don't understand as a child and you're watching this happen.
Yeah.
And then you're just like, what the hell? How is that fair? And there's nothing you can do about it because you're just a kid, and kids don't have opinions that matter when you're in AUB. So most children don't have an opinion that matters. And so then you get like, and I think that what the Browns did to these children is abuse for sure, putting them on television the way that they did. I just think it's super abusive. So, and I'm sad about that for those kids because they got to have all their flaws displayed for all of the world to see because this is an international show, and they got to have, you know, their sibling fights be on camera. So,
well, and it's interesting because I did watch the first season, and they do an interview with the kids, and it almost was like the kids were, okay, I think this is what the parents want me to say. I'll live polygamy, or I'll whatever. The kids were trying to impress their parents, talking to it, and then later on in the seasons, they're like, no, we're not living polygamy. They start to become more honest, those older kids. Polygamy, they start to become more honest, those older kids. And what surprises me is Robin's two older girls seem to be still trying to impress the parents the way that they're communicating to the camera, where all the other kids seem to be like, no, we're done. This is a hoax type thing. It's a lot different behind the scenes if they're on there, but Robin's two girls are still on there trying to say what Cody and Robin want to hear.
Will you guys come to church with me? I'm like, oh, come on.
I know.
Get out of here.
I know. That feels really weird and odd to me with like how infantile her children still are. It's definitely not. Most kids in polygamy don't have the luxury of being infantile like that because you have to, you got to be young. Yeah. Like you're out working your butt off at 12.
You should have 3 kids by now. What is she doing?
I know. I had my third one at 23, so I'm like,
that's what she said. She's mocking you.
Oh yeah. He's like, she gets it.
You awesome. And me, we're right here.
I know. He loves to make fun of me too. Or he'll say to my kids, because when my daughter wanted to move out just recently, I'm like, you're only 21. Like, you can't move out. She's like, Mom, I'm almost 22. My birthday, because I told her, you're too young. And Corey goes, yeah, that's right. You're not having babies at 17. What is wrong with you? And he's like getting all sarcastic with her. And when she said that, Mom, I'm almost 22, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess you are old enough. You probably.
We're okay,
yeah. So she moved out a month or 2 months before she turned 22. And but for me, I was like, but you're so young. You're so little. But so just because I was working a full-time job at 14, you know, so.
Yeah. And did Robin's mom burn through the family funds too? We don't know, but
possibly.
She learned it from somewhere. Yeah.
Oh, that cute daughter just walked in. She came to visit us.
My little daughter who doesn't have 3 kids.
Yeah, our cute daughter that doesn't have 3 kids at 22. She's like, oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Oh, yeah, none of our kids, we only have the 2 grandbabies right now. And my son was 29 when he had the first one, and then 31 when he had the second one. So we have a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old grandbaby. She's almost 2.
Almost 2.
Yeah, her birthday's coming up here soon. And so that's...
Dad coming from LDS, and then, yeah, his siblings would have kids young. And, yeah, so they were all super young. But my brother, he didn't become a father. He adopted a whole bunch of kids. Gosh, this was he, how many years has it been? Wait, I have to math it out. More older than 40. We'll put it that way. Older than 40. And yeah, let's have a big Insta family through adoptions. Could be great.
Right.
I'm like, dude, you're crazy. I'm like, I was already like, there's no way I'm going to think about starting a family ever. It's time has come and gone for me. And you're like, oh, we'll just have more kids come in. I'm like, you're nuts. You're nuts.
We fostered a bunch of kids, foreign aid or foreign exchange students and stuff like that. So we've had a rotation of kids come through our house that were not, we claim them now, but they weren't biologically ours. Yeah. So we've had that a lot through our home, and we've loved it. So I've had a couple siblings move in with us. Yeah. That have, needed extra help or whatever, and they've moved in with us when my little brother moved in when he was 18, and then my little sister moved in when she was 16. Oh, wow. Yeah, I'm the oldest, and then she's the baby. So there's 26-year gap between us. So.
But one of us is really excited because our baby is turning 18 at the end of the month, and then I don't have to be responsible for kids ever again.
We still are.
I can be a granddad, but still responsible. But
so you're excited.
It is. I'm excited.
It feels weird. It feels really weird. Our baby will be 18 in 10 days. So It feels like, what the heck? How did we get here so fast? But it's been fun. We've enjoyed it.
And I'm thankful because I'm an older man now, but my kids are grown, and my dad was still having kids at my age, which is insane to me.
Oh, yeah, no, that's not a good idea for anyone.
So.
Yeah. Oh, your sister would know this age or this question more, because the baby, I want to say his dad was like 65 when he had the baby. So, and his dad started becoming a polygamous man, because he only had the one wife with the 2 kids, and then he married Corey's mom and had Corey
at 43.
At 43. So he didn't even start becoming a polygamist till he was 43 years old. Wow. Yeah, and then he had his baby. I think she would know. Let's see if she'll tell us this. But he was like 60 something when he had the last one. Yeah, it's like, what are you doing? And so he passed a couple of years ago when that baby turned 18. Yeah.
Oh, so the baby did make it to 18.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, she said her mom was 42 and he was 62 to 64. So he was somewhere in there.
Young.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
It is. How can you give that? My grandpa, I mean, this is a bad story. Probably shouldn't go too deep into this one, but my grandpa married a girl just a couple years older than me and had 4 children with her until he passed. Mm. And he was 70 something when he married her.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so she was just a couple years older than I am. And, I'm the 4th oldest biological grandchild, but my brother's only 18 months older than me. So there was 4 of us born in 18 months. And, so yeah, I was pretty young so I have children the same age as her children. They went to school together. Mm-hmm. And, yeah, that would be considered my grandpa's kids. So, yeah, it's a little twisted.
Your uncles.
Yeah. So they would be my uncles. Yeah, pretty much. Oh, yeah. And they're the same age as my children. So it feels
great.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, right. It's like, oh, that feels like so icky, but yeah, she married him and had 4 children with him before he passed on. So, and wow. Yeah, nobody likes that idea. So, but she was a little mentally unstable too. And so, of course, she was willing to marry him. Probably shouldn't put that out there too much because people will watch this. Most people we know watch all of these. Yeah. So it's interesting.
She's probably watching it.
I doubt she'll watch it. Even if she does, it's fine. Like, she knows it. It's not like we can hide that, you know? Yeah. So I think that when the baby was born, he is, I want to say he's probably 22 right now. Her baby is. And my dad is 72. So my dad's the oldest. So there's like a 50 plus year gap between the oldest of my grandpa's children and the baby.
Wow.
So, yeah. Welcome to polygamy. This is why we call it polygonometry.
Well, LDS families are like that too, because they believe in just continuously having babies. My grandmother didn't. She had 4, but she had like 10 miscarriages. So yeah, she tried a lot. Yeah.
Right. Yep. No, it does happen. And that's why, you know, oh, Corey's sister says, Melanie, don't say those. Those are secrets. I know. We openly talk about everything. And then later on, when we're done, we're like, should we have said that? Maybe not. Maybe we should rethink that.
We'll find out later.
Can we delete that? So
no, it's live.
Right.
Well,
right.
next family reunion or funeral or wedding that we meet up with them at, we can tell if they are listening or not.
I know, right?
If you didn't know that.
It's so true. Most people have been really supportive of us coming out publicly. I'd say 95% of the people that we run into are very supportive of it. Most of our siblings watch our stuff, but there's a few. You know, I had this one woman that I just have adored my entire life, and her daughter was even on one of these polygamy shows, and I went public and started talking about it and referring to it as a cult. And I saw her recently, and I went up to her, and she was so cold and so harsh to me, and I was like, I didn't put that connection. I didn't think that was why. And finally, I was looking at her, and I'm like, do you know who I am? And she's like, oh, I know exactly who you are. And I was like, oh, okay. And so, but I've known this woman since I was 12 and have been friends with, like, every time I'd see her, she'd give me a ginormous hug and love and just being wonderful. And then, that night she let me know. And it wasn't until I got in the car with my daughter, because my daughter was with me. And I was like, holy crap, I just had this experience. And she's like, well, duh, you're talking on your podcast about stuff. And I'm like, oh, shoot, I didn't even think about that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And my siblings are all on here joking with me, so they're supportive. I do probably have 3 siblings that are still part of the AUB that would probably frown upon this because I'm speaking lightly of the Lord's anointed. But other than that, or of their religion, but I try to be respectful. But most of my nieces and nephews from them are on here too, so I'm probably being that bad influence. So
I know, you're so horrible.
It's all right though. We're okay with it. So I hopefully we're gonna, by speaking out and being honest about it, will help more people then.
Yes. I think that's it. Somebody asked, what is the difference between AUB and LDS? Which, I mean, the ultimate big difference is polygamy. Belief-wise, I mean, there's obviously a lot of crossovers belief-wise, but I think myself, I don't know AUB in and out and all that kind of stuff, but it sounds to me like the big difference is a lot of the beliefs are pushed to get you to stay within polygamy. Yeah. So they'll say, oh, we believe women do this and men do this and things like that, but it's to keep them in those roles.
Right.
LDS does the same, but it's to keep women having babies and staying at home and men going out and doing. So it's like,
Yeah. AUB and the FLDS, the biggest difference too, that they split when FLDS started doing a lot of underage marriages. That's when the AUB and the FLDS split. It wasn't just solely that reason, but it is the AUB and the FLDS, from my understanding, both believe that they are following the original teachings of Joseph Smith, who founded the Mormon Church. And so that's why they do it, is because they believe that God is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow, and forever. And so if the doctrine was true once, it should always stay true. It doesn't change just because society changes.
Right.
And so they try to stay as close to those original teachings as possible. Now, I just think they're so full of crap on so many things. Like, you know, they claim to be a Christ-based church, and yes, I see very little Christ-like attributes from a good chunk of them.
Right.
Well, Corey's over here.
Because they're living the higher law based on their belief system. So
Right.
No, so they don't have to.
they don't have to follow all that. So
No. Nope.
yeah, the main difference is, I guess, the LDS Church in 1886 had a revelation to no longer live polygamy, and they claim that they were set aside to continue living polygamy to keep it alive, and then they were excommunicated. So,
Yeah.
and then
Which is interesting that they had this whole revelation about no longer practicing polygamy when they were starting to take away land from people who were practicing polygamy. So
Funny,
weird.
huh? So convenient.
Yeah.
And then later on, there was a second split between the FLDS and the AUB, and it was based on the prophet died, and half of them followed
One guy.
and the other half followed the All Red group. And I know our mothers don't like it, but I mean, based on their belief system, the AUB is a split off, but they feel like that they were again ordained to take the reins or the keys from there. So, but both FLDS and AUB split from the same prophet and just followed a new prophet. And then every time the AUB has had a prophet die, they've got another split and
Yeah.
another split. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Yeah. And that's really where it comes down, because one guy said, "Oh no, I received that I'm the prophet in secret." And so, you know, you always get these, but you just got to believe me. And so I was telling this to my mom the other day, we were talking, and I was saying, yeah, because we've said this a dozen times. The AUB is just from one apostasy, from another apostasy, from another apostasy, from all the way to Joseph Smith. And my mom's like, "That's not true. That's not, this is," I'm like, "Okay, Mom, let's break it down." You know,
Yeah.
the FLDS went this way and AUB went this way. The Kingstons went this way. Why? Because they all believed that their guy had the truth and no one else did. So who's the apostate there? Who's the one who, you know, who got it wrong? Because they all don't think they did. Oh, what are you saying?
Jill is asking, can you join the AUB if you weren't born into it? And that's yes. Cody did.
Yeah.
So
You got to know
all of
somebody who knows somebody,
my
though.
dad did. All of my mothers joined the AUB, and they were part of the
Yeah.
outside of it. So
Yeah.
yes, you can.
It doesn't happen very often anymore. They went through a big recruiting process early in the 70s. So Christine's grandpa is the one who recruited my parents and Corey's parents. Yeah, and so he's the one who recruited them and then baptized them. Like, he baptized Corey's dad, and then Corey's dad baptized my dad into the AUB. And so they went through this big recruiting process, because that's when the FLDS and the AUB split. And so they followed their prophet, AUB followed their prophet, which was Christine's grandpa. And so, yeah, and then you'll get people like Tom Green, or even the Dargers, or the Kingstons, or whatever, and they were once a part of it, and then somebody comes in and they don't like that leader. And so then they're like, "Oh, just kidding. I just got a revelation from God that says I don't have to like that leader, because I now have the true authority." So that's where you get it. Yeah. So it is. It's just one apostasy after another, and all came down from the one main LDS church.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And
It could be such a bigger group if they could just figure out how to get along and find a leader instead of splitting off so much.
right. Well, and it happens too, like, if a leader is there and then they die without appointing the next leader, now you've got all these questions, like, well, now what are we supposed to do? Who's gonna, you know, when my dad became the leader, the prophet died that day, and was like, my mom calls me and she's like, "Oh my gosh, the prophet just died today." And so she starts to tell me the story, and I shouldn't even laugh. She starts to tell me the story about it, and she was like, Yeah, he got really sick, and he said, well, I'm not going to die on this day. And I'm like, well, he got that prophecy wrong now, didn't he? So what else did he get wrong? And so that's why my dad was appointed, was because my dad was the next senior in line.
Okay.
And
so he was appointed. It didn't happen in a dream.
No. So, yep. And so then you have to get the majority of the other leadership to agree. Yes, he is now the new guy. And so, right. And so when the prophet that I grew up with died, the next senior in line took his place. That's the way we were always taught it was supposed to be. Because you got the leader and then you got 12 apostles, just like the LDS church.
Right.
And so, yeah. Then he dies and he skips over like 2 or 3 of them and goes to the like the most corrupt guy on the whole panel. He gives it to him. And so then that split the AUB in half, because people were like, what? Now you just overskipped 2 or 3 people and went to one of the most corrupt people on your whole leadership. And so he was the last prophet. And so then when he died, yeah, my dad just kind of got it. So I'm curious to see what my dad does with it.
Yeah.
Who's he going to appoint, or who's he going to? Because there's rumor out there that Cody and Robin are talking to the second in charge of the AUB. And I'm like,
wait a minute. I thought Cody was out of it.
Right. Well, we confirmed that.
Isn't he? So are we going to see Cody Brown become a prophet? And then now we're going to have prophets of AUB, TLC.
Right? That'll be interesting to see, huh? Oh, but the guy he's talking to
contradict my ass off on that kind of a
He can't become a prophet unless he cuts those beautiful locks of his.
You give up eternal life for a haircut.
Okay. Now all of a sudden I do want him to be the prophet, just to get
damn curls.
Yeah.
So no, the guy he's talking to is, if you go according to doctrine, is not the second in charge. He's only the second in charge in his own mind because his ego is so huge.
Okay.
And if you want to see a guy who's worse than Cody Brown, that would be the guy. And so,
is this the guy? No, you probably don't know. That was involved with the production of the show?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Okay.
No.
She's going to make enemies within the AUB. So
I'm so annoyed by it. Like, I don't even know why it's annoying me that bad. Like, who even cares? Like, who even cares? But these guys just have the biggest egos, and sometimes it just gets super frustrating to watch it. It's like, sit down.
Yeah.
All these people are within her family.
He's my uncle.
Yeah.
He's married to my dad's little sister. So, yeah. So it's just fun. It's just fun to watch. So, yeah, you didn't know you were going to get so much tea tonight, did you?
Wow. What a tangled web we weave.
I know. It's just so ridiculous. I just think the whole thing. What do you do?
Been on 3 hours?
Yeah, we've been on 3 hours.
Oh my gosh.
Bet you didn't think that we were going to be on 3 hours, did you?
No. This has been an enlightening conversation. I mean, there's so much that, we know, but I guess you've so much more encapsulated how they truly knew each other, how connected everybody really is, and the beliefs and the teachings that really led up to all the conflict that we're seeing now.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that really is the truth. And everyone's so intertwined. It is. It's just a tangled web, that is so hard to break free from. And most of the time, I really don't care what happens. Somebody else tell us something, and I'm just like, so glad I got out, But I think with this being the first season that we've really watched of Sister Wives, and we're doing commentary on it now, it's right there in my face sometimes. And so it's hard not to just go, so
really? What are you people thinking?
Like, come on, you can't be really, like, you can't be that duped. But they are that duped. And I won't even lie, when we first started talking out loud and I would say stuff verbally, I'd be like,
we're going to get in trouble for
I'm going to get in trouble for this. And so it's really taken a minute, and I'm still not even all the way there. I won't even lie. There's certain things I'll say and I'm just like, ooh, I'm going to get in trouble for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. They keep that inbred in you in that thought process of somebody's always listening. We're going to find out what you're doing. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it's really hard. I first came public a year and a half, almost 2 years ago. It's the first time I spoke out. I hadn't started a podcast, I hadn't done anything, and I used the word cult describing the AUB, and I literally got a phone call from my dad the next day, like aggressively, and tells me I can no longer use that word. I'm like, Dad, I'm 48. Like, I can use whatever word I want, but
sorry, but
yeah. No, but he was definitely, and I understand why he doesn't want us to use the word. It creates an us versus them, and it dehumanizes people when you categorize them as cult members. It dehumanizes them. It makes them easier to hate, and that is not what we're about. Yeah. I definitely don't want to go out there and create more hate, but some of the teachings are very. I mean, there's just no way around it.
Yeah.
What?
Just a lot of my family, it's just trying to get I want to speak out about it. I want to make fun of certain things that I see so that my family that is following along still in this, well, we can't, I'm trying to make it okay to speak ill of the Lord's anointed or of the Lord's people. And me not getting struck by Robin's lightning bolt makes my other family members going, oh, okay, well, he's still a nice guy. He's a good guy.
Right.
But he doesn't believe that. And we probably can believe different stuff too. And so I'm always asking questions of my family, but I'm always talking those that are still within it. Most of us are out of it. So I'm thankful for that. But it has taken 30 years to get most of my family out of the AUB. So
yeah,
I still have a mother that believes wholeheartedly in it, and I love her to death. I don't want to disrespect her belief system because she sacrificed a lot in her life for what she thought was right.
Yeah.
I love her for that, but she does not have any kids that are a part of it, and that's because it was a miserable life to live. So
yeah. So it is. It's really hard, and my mom still believes, even though she's not wanting to be with my dad. She still believes in it. So it's really hard. It's hard because we don't want to disrespect family that we love.
Yeah.
Oh.
And it's a long process. I felt like I was deeply indoctrinated for 18 years, and it's 36 years later, and I'm still unlearning some of the indoctrination that I got from the first 18 years of my life. So
Absolutely.
I'm always checking in with myself is that something that serves me, or is that something that I was indoctrinated with as a young kid? So
Right. Yep. So we're always having to check that all the time. Our kids are over here. How you doing over there? Our kid, she walked in to say hi to us, and she's over here just listening away. So
we got going on today.
I know. They're great about supporting us in everything that we're doing, talking out, speaking out about things. So I've had a couple questions pop up about Mexico. And somebody says, do the two of you have a TikTok page? Yeah. So we're live from our TikTok page. They're asking about Mexico. So yes, there is a church down in Mexico. Yes, there is a temple. An AUB has a temple in Mexico, and that is where my ex-husband's family is from. So that's why my older 3 kids are Hispanic. Is because they came out of the colony down there in Mexico. So yep, there's a whole big. My dad has always loved the Spanish people, and he's done mission work in Mexico since I was a small child. So he'll go down there and do a lot of mission work down there.
He has an offspring of his group, so he goes down there and teaches from their temple and stuff like that too. So
it's still part of the AUB. It's still the AUB's temple, but yeah. So they so that's where my ex-husband was raised down there during the summers, and then came back to the States for the school years, and then would go back down to Mexico for the summers. So Somebody says, do the AB not have a Lamanite storyline? They do. Yeah, they do, but it's still okay. Like, and my mom taught us not to see color at all. And so when I was getting married, that never crossed my mind. And somebody said to me, can you marry him? And I was like, why couldn't I? And so they're like, because of his race. And I was like, what? Never even had that question before. Like, I never even thought about it. And so then I had to go to my dad and ask him. And my dad's like, my dad was offended that I even asked it. Absolutely. It's just fine. So, yeah, they definitely, my dad has a deep, deep love for, which I do too, but, the deep, deep love for the saints in Mexico, as he calls them. But yeah. Oh, they're asking about the LeBaron group. You know, we're not part of the AB doesn't have anything to do with the LeBaron group. They're another split off of a split off of a split off. So that's why Christine's grandpa was murdered, because they split off, and the other group believed they had the real priesthood, and then the Allred group believed they had the real priesthood. So then that's where blood atonement came in. So there you go. So much dark history.
There's one thing that solves a religious argument is breaking one of the commandments.
Right. Exactly. So it's a whole different subject on it, but well, we probably should be done soon. Yeah. We didn't mean to keep you for 3.5 hours. Thank you so much. Great. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, we have absolutely loved chatting with you. Like I said, you're one of my very favorite YouTube or TikTok creators. I have absolutely loved following you. Before I ever even thought about content you were one of the very first, if not the first, Sister Wives content creator I followed. Yep. So
I think we have the same sense of humor. I have to kind of explain.
You do. You two are very similar.
I'm glad you have them around then.
You are, and you're just your calming nature and just the way you guys are. Like, your whole energy is very similar, so it's very funny. That's probably why I was so attracted to watching all of your content. Mm-hmm. So yeah, but we'd love to do it.
I was so happy you started speaking out too, because the things that you say on your content is like, okay, so I am reading that right. Okay, yeah.
There's not very many creators who do read it right, and so it is. Because they'll say something and I'll be like, yeah, I don't see it like that, but let me just, yeah.
But we always don't agree either, so I have to convince her a little bit too, so.
Yeah, like.
And we probably are both wrong. They probably got some other storyline that, so I'm not saying that I'm right about anything. I just have my own opinion. So.
Yeah.
Well, they'll make something else up later.
They will. They'll change it. So
when it was awesome, Mary reached out to me about it and was talking, chatting with me a little bit about it. And she's like, I'd love to get together sometime and maybe go over a couple of your thoughts. And I'm like, oh, sorry if I overspoke. And she's like, no, not at all. I just would like to go over some. She's like, your videos are very fascinating. So yeah. So
she said that to me too. And I was like, did I say something wrong? She goes, no, not at all.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, she's been great. I've been wanting to try to reconnect with her, but yeah, I barely caught the tail end of your guys' live when you were doing a live with her. So yeah. I didn't get to see that whole thing. Do you ever repost these to YouTube or anything?
I haven't been, because I usually, before I would go on live, would talk about, I'm going to post this or that. But I probably should start doing that, because this thing may not be around. So
yeah. So we'll upload this. If you're okay with it, we'll upload this one to our YouTube channel. Yeah. I just see a lot of the comments are asking if we're going to upload it to YouTube, and if you're good with that, we definitely would love to upload it. And then I can tag you on your YouTube channel in it too, so that you can be tagged in it. So, but yeah, we love YouTube. That's where I started. So, yeah. And my kids just talked me into doing a TikTok because it was shorter form and I could get more followers that way. So that was why I moved over to TikTok. But yeah, so we'll upload this after it'll take a couple hours. TikTok usually takes like 4 or 5 hours to process the video. Yeah. Like my last video I did, it took 2 days. I was so bad. And so it just kind of depends, but we'll upload it to YouTube. So.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah. All right. So thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Yeah, we will see you on TikTok here and there. And if you ever decide you want to do another one, let's do it. We'll make it happen.
All right. Very
Thanks
cool.
Thanks everybody who sent us gifts too. I appreciate that.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even notice that. Yeah. Yep. So you have a wonderful night. Thank you.
All right. You too.
All
Good
right.
night, everyone.